Good? Live. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We have a really special guest to you tonight.
Not that special.
Come on. You are.
Well, it's not that special.
It's, okay, one, if you would listen
special to me, first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut the live. Something's about to happen.
Look away or don't.
Look away. But we've talked about it for quite some time now, how you wouldn't come on here.
Correct.
And so now you're on here, so you're a special guest.
You
liar.
liar.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm a special guest until I was like, hey, come out this week. And you're like, we got somebody.
And Steve, we'll get into what Steve's using in a little bit
Sure.
when the audio gets started. But
show everybody at home. Oh, wait, we can't. Never mind.
Unless
you're at home right now and you're watching. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, and maybe some of you that came to the
nice.
Smoking 10 event this past weekend may have seen it at the Alec Bradley booth. So, but
a spot like this, right?
we always like to tell you, please please share it, and that's what we're going to do right now, along with Ryan, our guest.
And welcome, Michelle, Tyler. Nice seeing you tonight. Have a great show. I hope you're going to stay tuned, Tyler. Eric Black's on there.
Yes.
Jake Sanders.
Hi.
All right.
And we're back on Facebook.
We're back on Facebook, which is nice. So we're going to get started on the audio recording. We were dealing with what everyone was dealing with last week, which was, and I don't want to say, I posted something negative, like if Zuckerberg has it fixed, and I feel like that immediately gets flagged and like goes to a certain like wing of a certain branch of Facebook, and they're like, "Fuck this guy."
Yeah, you messed
us
up.
No more
Thanks,
organic
Steve.
stuff. I think it was on my personal.
But they know.
It gets to a point when you can just physically just spend all that time counting money that they don't care about. Like literally.
They remember my name.
All
right, we ready to go here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, are you ready, Jay?
I gotta get my clink ready.
Jesus.
What's a clink?
Yeah, you'll see.
And how?
And
how? Ready?
All right.
Are we on right?
Yeah.
Ready, setting?
I love the excitement.
I can feel the excitement.
Hello, everyone. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. That was really great.
It was nice.
That was a great one.
That was good.
And it ended with like a whisper from Ryan. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I know.
Were you so zoned in?
See, that's why I'm excited to have Ryan Ponist on tonight. From
thick.
Alec Bradley.
I am too.
Thick.
Because he's just
damn boy, she's thick.
he's just just an optimum personality in the room. Right
First
now.
off, if there's anybody around here I would put as optimum, Steve Crane.
I'll take it.
But, so, happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone. I'm Jake Sanders along with Steve Crane, and we make up the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 59, right?
I should have been there for 57. Let's catch up.
Yeah.
I got my Steelers, not Steelers, Pittsburgh. Which everybody just sees black and
Is
gold.
it 59? Is that 57? Right?
Are we 57?
Yeah. No, it's 59. Someone said we should put a ketchup bottle on there.
Just for 57.
Yeah.
It was immediately
I
met with.
completely forgot about that.
Immediately met with cries.
So we are on 59. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for all the support. We had the Smoking 10 event this past weekend, which was great, and we'll get into a little bit of that. But if this is your first time tuning in, please please share, and please leave us a 5-star review after listening to the full thing on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, on Facebook, and any of our other platforms that we're on. So if this is your first time tuning in, please know that we do a whiskey, we do a cigar, we talk about the pairing, and then we have a life topic. So tonight we're going to be talking about the art of communication, which is going to be really, really great with Ryan here.
That was Denzel Washington and Wesley Snipes.
That was Passenger 57.
I was going for the Art of War. What was that?
I don't know. I was what?
Disregard.
That was a book.
No,
Did they make a movie?
It was a movie.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Were either of those actors in it? Is my question.
I really
I
don't.
highly doubt it.
I really don't know.
highly doubt it.
He doesn't.
Let's just
know.
go with it.
Should I share this to bodybuilding.com?
Definitely.
That's coupon codes. They might. I don't know.
Those guys. And
Gym
gals,
Armor. Yeah.
They need it. They need this.
Stash Ranch. Lazona. Stogies on Ice.
Yes.
Can you stop sharing of mine?
No, we're gonna double up. They're gonna be like, holy shit! Like, it's crazy.
So, Ryan was amazing tonight. He brought the cigar and the whiskey, man. So, again, to reiterate that Ryan, we're talking about the how long he's been with Alec Bradley.
Thank Alec Bradley.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, he's been with Alec Bradley.
I will definitely not thank you.
You said for 4 years.
4 years, end of this month. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so he's been a rep for 4 years. He brought the Prensado Lost Art, which is a great cigar, but he brought the Torpedo, which we don't really carry in at the Tinder Box, but we have their Toro size, right? Or what's
I knew you guys like the Lost Art, and when we order samples and stuff, every once in a while you got to get something a little bit different because the majority of our stuff comes in like Robusto whenever we're carrying around. So it just so happened that I got a box of Lost Art Torpedo, and I was like, you know what, I think that would be really good for the show. So
yes,
that's perfect.
No, we're excited.
Yeah,
extravagant, really.
Yeah. Sponsors.
Yeah.
Besides the sponsor for this episode, we're gonna try to.
Well, and the fact that he brought the Hudson Maple Cask Rye Whiskey, which we haven't had a Hudson on.
I'm really excited about that. So we touched on it, I think in a live. I don't know if we were live with the podcast at that point, but my hesitancy to come on the show, one of the reasons is I was joking that I hate literally everything on the show.
Yeah.
Not what that you guys do.
No, you chose your
I
words.
hate bourbon.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, it fits into tonight's topic. All right.
Yeah,
so anyway.
right.
So,
right.
So like I'm not. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't really like talking, and I don't like bourbon. But you know what? Hey,
Do you like cigars though?
I do like cigars. So I guess not everything. That was incorrect.
A little bit of BS too.
I immediately regret my choice of words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize.
So you like most of the things on the podcast?
I don't like most of it.
Okay.
But no, we got the Hudson Maple Cask Rye Whiskey. We'll get into all that later, but I just because I feel like it's appropriate to mention. So Alec Bradley has sort of a partnership or a liquor partner, as we like to call it, which is William Grant and Sons. We primarily work with Glenfiddich.
Wow.
We do a lot to promote Glenfiddich. They normally hook us up with a lot of liquid for our events and stuff where it's legal to do so. So that's great. But Hudson's a product of theirs that we don't really deal with a lot. But I thought for this specific podcast, I thought it was fitting. And I really don't like bourbon. Like I said, I'm not a big rye or bourbon guy, but.
Sure.
I thought that this was fitting because it's a little sweeter and it's something I tried recently that was very different and it caught my attention. I enjoyed it.
So are you more like a rum guy?
I like vodka. I like rum, and I do drink some scotch.
Okay.
Really,
Irish
whiskey I will drink. I will say I fuck with some Irish whiskey.
Right. Good to know.
I've met an Irish whiskey I don't like.
We want to thank our other sponsors, right? I mean, since they help us out every week, we are going to be featuring Alec Bradley. We kind of talked to Josh and Paul from Altadis USA. They don't mind when we have someone else come on. And
that's good.
Neither does Tinder Box, obviously. It's just something that they help support us, so we want to mention them anyways. Normally, Tinder Box at Easton would be providing our first cigars, so maybe by way of the account, they are still vis-a-vis here, but and then we also have Altadis, like I said, and they do our weekly second cigar, as well as continued support, and then BS Cigar Company for continued support as well.
Yes. What's I brought a Rubito size.
Did you
the
now?
only Rubito that I have.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it afterwards, and then we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
About what we think.
I can see if I can get some. I know I've got a 5-pack, so we could possibly do that, but. We did a special size that, I think we let the cat out of the bag a little bit earlier, but we did a special size of the BS Silver for Brian's 20th anniversary, and so far it's had some great reviews. It's definitely a pepper bomb, so if you guys are part of the Lazona group, you've been seeing that kind of pop on a little bit more in the last few days, and there's been a lot of responses and inquiries about that, so we're going to try to get that into regular production here.
Let's talk about we had the Smoking Tent event last Friday, and we mentioned it last week too, but I was kind of outside at the very beginning, but you guys were both in the tent. Like, how was it?
Well, at the very beginning, I was not.
Yeah, when did you get there?
8:15.
Oh, no shit.
8:15-ish, yeah.
8:15. Yeah.
Which that was interesting. Once again, I got to give you guys kudos on it, and I'm not just here to fluff you guys, but no, seriously, like that was I feel like every year you guys either add something or a very unique set of circumstances occurs.
Yeah, I'd rather not do those again.
Yeah. But no, like, I mean, that was just crazy. Like, the way we came in, I mean, just hustling to get everything sort of set up there, just how it just went off without a hitch. I mean, that was really interesting.
Well, it's funny because, you know, if you're on one side of the tent, they didn't see us on the other side of the tent literally carrying shit in at like 8:15 when there's already 300 people in there. So it's like, you know, Brian, the owner of the Tinder Box, he was like, you know, I never saw, Miguel. He's like, I never saw Miguel. He never came over and said hi and everything. I said, well, you have to understand, like, I was carrying stuff at like 8:50. He was there for the 8:30 start of the Cigar Expo part of it, and then he left after the raffle.
Right.
You know what I mean? But, like, I don't think he ever made it to that side of the tent. He basically came in the back by the stage, and Ryan and Miguel were greeted by Jordan, who was helping out, myself, and then a couple others. And it's just kind of like, all right, where do we go? And we're just like carrying all sorts of shit into the table. And then it's at the end of it, if you didn't stick around and hang out, and then Brian was busy too. It's just, it was like you came in, you hit it, and you were gone.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. It was definitely fun in the amount of people. I mean, we did have a lot of people. It's always normally around like 300 guests or so, plus Fido staff, and we thank Fido countless times pretty much for doing what they did all weekend. But it was a great event, like, especially being outside in the cold and freezing my ass off, and yeah,
I think all things considered, to basically post it on February 12th for March 15th event, and like as far as tickets went on sale on February 12th, so that's 4 weeks. If you remember that February is a few days short.
Right.
Literally 4 weeks. We sold it out and got it all put together. But I mean, I was talking with these guys prior to that date as far as we were approved. It was just kind of like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Pencil it in.
Yeah.
And then I got approval, and we were I was on the phone with all these guys.
Even when you called me to pencil it in, like, honestly, I was just shocked at that point. I had no idea. Like, I thought, like, it's just not going to happen.
It was dead, yeah.
So, I mean, the fact that you guys, did it in such a shorter amount of time, which I'm sure you guys were doing some sort of planning that you could do, but until the rubber meets the road, you really can't get a whole lot done.
Literally, I've told these guys on the podcast that I had 3 to 5, I don't know what it was at the end of it, but like 3 to 5 outlines in my head going on.
Was one of them in me?
You were in every one of my dreams.
Thank you.
I mean, my plans.
Oh, man. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
That's a highlight right there. No, but I mean, it was like, because we didn't know what we would be approved for if we were actually approved. So I had, basically it was like, all right, we're only going to smoke for 4 hours. We're going to do some sort of party. And then it was like, oh no, we do have approval. It was a mess.
Well, I'm sure you also didn't exactly understand what you were going to have to do to even be approved, correct?
We did. I mean, we kind of knew. I mean, it was a 5-month process.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's...
No, but what I'm saying is, like, as far as, like, okay, you guys can smoke here, or you can't smoke these hours, or, like, that's a lot to leave open to figure out how the hell you're going to pull this off.
Yeah, you can do 6 hours of smoking if we get it, and then it's turned into, like, randomly, oh no, you're going to have 4 hours for smoking. And it's like, well, what happened in the other 2 hours? I mean, if you've listened to the podcast before, you've heard some of this, but it was definitely, we did not know until we...
rubbed my face in it? But
I was talking to the viewers and listeners. But we do have a couple questions. Kylie's on board here.
Kylie?
Yeah, Kylie from Nat Sherman.
And Nook just joined.
Nook's here.
Nook's on.
He came in. You want to see if we're eating all breakfast surprise?
Lucky, who listens quite frequently, this is her first time viewing in the new garage, it looks like. She says, do you like Cuban rum, when we were talking about rum?
Do I like Cuban rum? The only thing I've ever had in Cuban rum is Havana Club. So I don't know.
Do you know what color the...
Oh, it's a dark rum, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, darker rums definitely I go towards. I don't do a whole lot with any of the white rums.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, somebody's making a killer mojito.
Yeah.
I'll be down for that. My mom will make rum balls during the holidays, and she'll use a lot of Bacardi for that.
Sure.
But I don't. So like that's just that. But yeah, normally darker rums. Mixers straight. However, I like the sipping rums.
And then also before we get further into this, Nook. Well, we got a couple things here.
Okay.
Kylie has a request, and can I request to not be next to Ryan next time? And short answer, Kylie, no, you can't.
I just want to throw this out there. We have video proof of you loving being next to me. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, you guys took pictures.
And I really wish that you left that video up of me just screaming for no reason.
Oh, she took it down?
Well, it was like it was a 24-hour
story.
Story thing.
And then Nook says, ask Ryan about the hash brown surprise. Do we want to handle that now or later?
I mean, anytime I can put off a hash brown surprise, I'm going to put it on.
I don't know.
That's really all it is.
We'll hold off on that.
Do we want to know?
Come back on. And I do want to say, I know this is the first time doing it, but it's not really a sponsor, and I don't want to take away from any of our sponsors, but we did have something nice donated when I moved into the house.
I was here.
Yeah, I know. From Line of Duty Cigars, if you guys can see that, pretty damn cool. They put the BS Cigar Company logo on there in the corner, kind of make it look a bit like the American flag. So thank you, Mark, who, or as you say, what?
Mark.
Thank you, Mark, if you're listening tonight or get tuned in here.
New York City guy.
So,
Yeah.
It's either that or Boston.
He's a great dude.
Go Boston after that.
A little bit.
He's a great dude.
Great dude. So.
So getting into our Hudson Maple Cask Rye Whiskey. Thank you again, Ryan, for bringing this. And the cigar by choice.
Yeah.
So Hudson comes out of New York, and it is 46% alcohol. It's pot stilled with rye grain whiskey, and it's aged under 4 years. Which this is kind of interesting because it has to be, if it's under 2 years, it has to be age stated. So it has to be at least like between like a 2 and a 4 year. If it says it's under 4,
right?
But if it doesn't have an age statement, it can't be 2. So it's probably
between
a 3.
those.
Yeah, it's got to be somewhere in between. But anyways, what makes this interesting and what I was reading up on about it is that this is like the new craze, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like this is taking over the whiskey world along with countless other finished whiskeys. Like Angel's Envy just came out with their Oloroso Sherry cask. Oloroso Sherry is a big finisher for whiskeys, whether it be rye or bourbon. But so what's cool about this, and I'm sure you could figure it out, is that they take this whiskey that's been aged, I'd say around like 3 years, and then they finish it off in maple casks.
Yes,
that were actually used for syrup.
Yeah, there's a company, and forgive me, I forget the name. They're out in Vermont.
Yes,
and they basically send their old. Well, what they do is they actually send their used whiskey casks to them,
and then they use it.
And then when they decant it, they send it back,
and then they bring it back.
That's where we finish it off. I say we like I did. Yeah. I did nothing.
I
didn't even bring it here, but you know,
in spirit,
absolutely.
You're here.
Yeah.
What's cool about the story on this is that in 2001, the distillers bought the property with plans of opening a rock climbers ranch.
I mean, as you do in Vermont.
Well, it's in New York, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was thinking of maple.
The maple syrup conglomerate, which I can just think of Wedding Crashers. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
Actually, no.
Dustin's.
Why?
Because when they're coming up with a backstory of one of the weddings, they're like, all right, how about this? We're maple syrup conglomerates from, I think he says, from Vermont. But they're coming up with their backstory, so that's all I can think of.
I'll have to watch it when I get home.
Wedding Crashers is hysterical.
No, I love it, but I just can't remember.
Yeah, towards the beginning when they're coming up with the backstories.
So what this, the spirits company is actually named Hill Town Spirits. It's
what was that?
Tuthill.
Tuthill Town.
Yeah.
Just rolls off the tongue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it goes down easier than it comes out. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Here's what's funny about this is that the neighbors of this. I'm not even trying to
say it again. One more time. Just one more time.
What did you? I liked how it.
Tuthill Town.
Tuthill Town. Yeah, I like that a little better.
The thing is, I don't know, but you just got to say it like you own it. That's all it is.
Maybe that's it. It's the confidence.
Well executed.
It's the confidence.
The art of communication.
The art of communication by Ryan Ponist.
But funny enough, their neighbors objected to the proposed purpose use of the rock climbing, but then they allowed a distillery to be created.
Who objects to basic,
low-level extreme,
like not even extreme, like low-level extreme sports? You're going to be like, you know what? I'm totally against what you guys are planning on doing over there. Yeah. Do not climb rock.
That's dangerous.
Is that what you think it was? Was it dangerous?
I don't know. What sense is that fucking?
Do you think they were like?
It probably was danger.
It probably like harming the environment. Like that should be a nature
How
preserve.
does a rock?
I don't know.
Well, I'm a distillery sergeant.
I'm not against
it was in a
rock climbing.
barn.
It was in a barn.
So it wouldn't affect it.
Rock climbing barn.
I don't know. Maybe it was a safety hazard, but you would think a distillery would have a lot more safety.
But you would think like there would be like some sort of checks and balance.
It wasn't just distillery. This was the maple syrup people, right?
No, this was the
distillery.
See?
Tuthillatown is in.
Tuthillatown.
Yeah. Wow. Slipped it right in.
Come on, Jake.
No.
No.
But
we're drinking already.
Yeah.
I didn't know if this was a thing. I didn't know if we were going to get
it's
noses.
so funny because his first question was,
we're
lighting up.
We'll get to that.
Well, I know a long time ago you passed the initial one because when you initially approached me, I was like, I could swear, right? And you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So with this...
Little E is for it.
If you don't swear in 5 minutes, we kick you off. No.
yeah, exactly. With this rye whiskey... It's actually really good. I'm actually pleasantly surprised.
I'm glad because I think I may have mentioned this to Steve a long time ago about it, and I think Steve was not as geeked about it. And I'm sure there's some whiskey purist out there that's really upset right now. But you know what? I bought some fucking whiskey.
Yeah.
And I would have never done that otherwise. You know what I mean? Like because
Yeah.
I bought it because I was just intrigued. And
yeah.
You're seeing a lot of stuff like that. These like I guess so to speak mashups.
Yeah.
Like us working with like Glenfiddich, they do this like experimental series, and like their new one's this Fire and Cane where they take like a peated whiskey and they put it in a Spanish rum cask to finish it, and you get that smoky sweet sort of thing, and that's sort of what I kind of get out of this.
The funny part about that is the fact that Scotch has been doing it for centuries.
Yeah.
And now it's just because the whiskey craze is so
huge.
It's right?
Like, even like wineries have been doing that for forever. You know what I mean? Like it just
now they're using whiskey casks.
Well, yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah. So I will say one of the things. The reason I think my hesitation for this was, and it was even when I was looking at it in the store, because Ryan was on the road coming here. He came straight to the house for the podcast, but it was. I'm looking at it. I'm like thinking like, all right, it's one of the. I don't want to say flavored, but some of them that have something like maple, I'm like, all right, this is going to be interesting.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking I'm going to set this down on the table, and then Jake's just going to be like, what the fuck are we drinking?
It's sort of like,
you know what I mean? But I know he's more educated than that. I'm just saying that it was also, in the state of Ohio, it's $49.99. So I'm like, so wait, you're spending $50 on a flavored whiskey, just the way it's marketed, until you read the back label. And that's like, okay, this is a little bit...
Absolutely.
You know, because we had the Cleveland Underground at one point when it was on. It was like black cherry, and it was like.
Actually, that's funny because I was looking at that when I was looking at this.
Yeah.
When I bought it the first time.
But those are actually flavored.
Right.
Like
okay.
This is traditional.
Well, it's kind of like when I go, like if you're out and you're looking through stuff, like you're in the snack aisle or whatever, and like bacon flavored, like it's just fake fucking smoke taste.
Although I was walking out of the deli at Kroger this evening, I saw
that sounds like a great joke, actually.
Flaming Buffalo.
There you go.
Flaming Buffalo popcorn.
That sounds terrible.
I don't know, man. I like buffalo sauce and I like popcorn.
Well, this should be illegal. I'm going full Rambo on here right now.
What should be illegal?
When Ruffles, you're my biggest culprit here, Ruffles. They'll put like, hey, we got barbecue, or we got hot buffalo wings. We got hot buffalo wing chips. And then they'll put a picture of the buffalo wings on there.
Are you expecting a wing to be in there?
You see that wing and you think, ooh, juicy, succulent wings. And then you got fucking shitty Ruffles potato chips.
It's a bag of potato chips from the beginning.
I know, but goddamn it, they tricked my stomach.
Still fucking bought them.
That's making the decisions here.
I knew this was going to be an interesting conversation.
It's a fucking shit.
Kylie says it's the Cuba of whiskey.
It's the
all right, calm down.
Cuba of whiskey.
No,
first of all,
that's
Cuba,
not even
also like Ruffles, acids kill it. The Cubas are a hot seller, always.
No, Fireball is like the Cuba.
Well, it's kind of like when people come in, they're like, "Hey, I want to get a cheeseburger with some Gouda on it," and it's like, "No, you don't like cheeseburgers. You like Gouda." That's the way I look at it, and that's sort of the thing where you get with some of this stuff.
It is Gouda cheese.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm saying like when somebody comes in, they request, something on like a burger, or something like something real crazy like that.
Yeah.
Is it that you like the burger, or is it that you like the cheese? You know what I mean?
I think it's the whole meal.
It's the whole meal.
Yeah.
It is the whole meal.
Yeah.
What I like about this whiskey is
what
that no, it's great. I love it. But what I like about this whiskey and keeping it moving forward is that is the fact that you can actually taste like the main point of the whiskey is that it's rye.
It's
right?
sort of
and it tastes like a lot of ryes that we've had. Like it reminds me of a lot of Willet, or the Angel's Envy rye, but the Angel's Envy rye was finished in rum casks.
I'd say more like Angel's Envy rye.
So, I mean, if you taste this, I mean, it is all spice notes.
Yeah.
Like if you think of actual spices that you use in your household.
I mean, especially if you think about what I drink, like this sort of drinks like a sipping rum almost. Like, you know what I mean? It has that spice, it has that sweetness to it, but it has those definite rye notes in it.
That's a good point.
It's got a lot of viscosity. Like it's thick.
Absolutely.
You can tell that it's
absolutely.
thick.
I mean, it's almost syrupy.
That's a great call, especially as I'm getting like.
Fuck yeah, you brought me on for my expertise.
You're so smart. But what I'm saying is that as you get down to the end of my first one. No, it's just I think it is very similar to some of the rums I've had, which is very interesting that it comes out of that.
That's why it's killer, and the fact that it's got an interesting bottle, like it definitely stands out. It's a nice cork.
It's a nice cork.
It's a very nice cork.
Right.
I like the fact that they do wax. They like do different colors, like the maple. They do like a brown
wax.
Orange
It looks like we just got.
I mean, that's pretty nice. It looks like syrup. Like I don't know if they meant it to look like that, but
You see that?
But it's definitely good. I actually really, really enjoy it. Again, it's good.
I was kind of interested to see how it would play with this cigar specifically.
Yeah, I think it's messing with it. It's the rye, like our main rye notes, like it's cinnamon. I mean, ginger, molasses.
Right.
I mean, you've got really rich vanilla.
Cadmium.
Obviously, syrup.
Cadmium. That's my favorite. I just throw an element in.
I don't think that's right.
No, but here's the thing about the nose: is the nose smells especially like maple syrup.
Yeah.
Like it smells like maple syrup.
I think this is a home run product. Whether or not somebody particularly enjoys it, I think you have to respect what they went for and what they were able to accomplish here. Because I think for something being different, and even like you said, Steve, your perception of it, walking up to it, and then reading the back, and then coming here and sitting down and enjoying it. I think it's I think it's really interesting what they went for here.
Here's what I think they nailed it on the head with, is that so you could make this with, like, if you just put bitters in this, it's this bitters and your old fashioned's already made. So
I would be very interested to have
because syrup is used in old fashions, just like a cube would be.
Right.
So in most old fashions are made with rye.
It might be a little harsh for that. May not be quite as sweet.
Yeah,
but I see what you're saying. I can definitely see that.
But I think that's what they're
orange
playing
peel
on.
in there.
But I think that's what they're playing on.
It could be.
And I think that they, especially in New York City, I think that's why.
That's definitely something that I would be interested if you went to somebody that definitely knows their way around a bar and can make some cocktails. Yeah. That's something that would be really interesting to see somebody get creative with.
I already know. I mean, I already know that that's like lights out, like instantly with just like
lights out,
just like a couple of orange bitters or something. And maybe like half a cube of like sugar or like a half of teaspoon of no. But what I like about this too is the fact that the flavors of the maple syrup don't come out until the very end. You have all these spices, you have the cinnamon, the molasses, and everything, and then it finally sits, and then the finish is all maple.
This reminds me of like a different sort of project that I had one time that was really interesting. There's a place out of Pittsburgh called Wiggle Whiskey. They started up their distillery there, and what's interesting is because they're Pennsylvania spirit, you know, you have to use Pennsylvania sort of materials to make everything, and they wanted to make a rum, and the thing is you need sugarcane to make a rum, and you're just not going to find sugarcane anywhere near Pittsburgh. So they came up with this product. They call it Landlocked, which is kind of interesting. And what they did was they essentially made a mead out of honey. And it's one of those things where when you look at texture and you look at taste and how the body perceives it, like when you start to drink this, you do sort of get that like, oh, I have a mouthful of maple syrup thing. But it quickly turns into that rye and then it finishes off again like that. And that's how that product was, where you drink it and you're like, your mind is like, you have honey in your mouth. But it's not the texture at all of honey. You know what I mean? Like, it's very strange how that sort of works.
Yeah.
And I sort of get a very similar thing here. There's something almost fooling to the way the mind is actually sort of creating what is actually in your mouth.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, it gets sweeter and less burn than, you know what I mean, as I get through the first glass, honestly. It's just something that...
When did you take your coat off?
Just now.
Okay.
You were talking.
Like, I just feel like you did it so smoothly and everything. Like, I just feel like at some point I'm going to be talking to you, I'm going to look over and Steve's just going to be shirtless. Just hanging out
obviously
there.
I've not watched this on Facebook.
Obviously.
But no, I think
you've got to subscribe.
It gets
ring that bell. Share.
No, I think it gets sweeter as the, I'm interested to do a second glass because the little bit of burn that I had for the first couple sips, like a lot of whiskeys or a lot of drinks, it's definitely gone. Like this does. I get what Jake's saying now is not to be repetitive, but as far as a cocktail, this doesn't seem like a typical bourbon or rye or anything like that. There is a lot more going on, and at first it was very subtle, but for me now it's getting a little bit more pronounced as far as that, as it lingers, as it finishes. Even going back to the Prensado Lost Art, it's just something that it's like you go back to this and it's still kind of fresh on there,
right?
Fresh on the palate. It's lingering. It's kind of right in the middle of the tongue. There's a little bit of like mouth-watering kind of food type of reaction there. I bet it is, buddy.
I don't think it's because of the cigar and the whiskey.
Oh no,
Jesus!
How many people have already stopped looking at the live? No.
The numbers are going down.
No, it's weird. I don't understand what's going on.
I see what you're saying.
Kylie's fanning herself in her hotel room right now. Like, what's going on?
I see.
Someone hit the garage.
Like the tongue feel is very like chewy. Like we've said that quite a bit.
Yeah,
but like,
tongue is chewy.
Like just the texture, it's a thick whiskey.
Yeah,
it's a thick whiskey.
Yeah,
but it's good.
I don't know if it's because we're all thinking like the whole maple syrup thing, but there is definitely a little bit of that.
It's
interesting
interesting.
part of it.
Like I said, it's just a very unique, sort of interesting.
I would like to see the whiskey that is aged before it goes into the maple cask.
What it picks up color-wise?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
flavor-wise. Because I bet, it's like 90 to 95% of color that you see in bourbon or rye or whatever comes from the barrel. So you can't tell me that like a 3-year-old whiskey looks like this.
Yeah.
That's aged in New York City.
I get what you're saying.
If this was in Texas, it'd be black.
Well, especially the way,
because of the heat. Explain that.
If you actually look at the way they word it, they specifically say they take the casks from Hudson, and then they go and they put the syrup in it, and then they decant it. So like I don't even know that they like age the honey or anything in it. It's like the way they say it to me, it almost sounds like when they just decant it. Like if there's like some syrup, sort of adhering to the wood in there or whatever. Like
I assume there is.
There. Well,
I was gonna just reiterate like what they're saying.
Go.
It's first of all it's harvested New York rye grain, which is cool because again going back to what Mark DeFazio had said. A few times where he's very proud of being from New York and that they do actual New York bourbons as opposed to a lot of the ones in the Midwest, they're typically pulling from MGP from Indiana, right?
Instead of Widow Jane.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something where it says, it's harvested New York rye grain and aged in new char oak barrels. So that you have that aspect where it's kind of like the pure bourbon, side of it.
For sure.
We then impart a rich maple quality to the spirit by aging it in used whiskey cask which held fresh maple syrup. So it's not just we're doing a photo op.
Yeah, right now.
All right.
Boom. We gotta get the lighter in there.
Yeah, it's but I mean it's something that wasn't just it was I think it does pick up a lot in that, and they don't say how long it was in the maple syrup cask, but I think that does. There's got to be some hanging on to that.
You would think.
There's got to be just based on the. Like again, the viscosity of maple syrup, it's got to be just kind of sticking to that. I mean, I think of like the honey type of a liquid.
Yeah, I don't know again, and you didn't know the name of the maple syrup company in Vermont, but and I don't know either.
It skips my mind.
But from what I've heard,
I think it's like Sugar something. I think like Sugar Creek or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This sounds right. This sounds like a maple syrup type of a place.
What I've heard though is that they use the bourbon barrels to actually age the syrup. So I'm guessing.
They do.
I'm guessing that and this is a guess, but an educated guess on saying that what they're doing. I'm guessing they age it for 3 to 4 months. And the maple syrup in the
I want to taste this maple syrup. I want to say that too.
Dude,
actually,
have you ever had like a bourbon aged maple syrup?
No.
They're amazing.
That's a thing?
It's actually a thing. It's absolutely amazing.
Like
Yeah. But what I'm saying is the relationship between, was it Toothley-Doo or whatever? Toothley-Doo?
No, that's not right.
But anyways, the relationship between them. I'm guessing that.
What did I say earlier? Now I can't read it, so I can't.
Toothley-Town. Yeah.
Toothley-Town.
I'm guessing the relationship isn't, one-sided.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're getting something out of it. It's aging in the cask.
It's definitely a mutual sort of thing.
And then they're getting it back.
Benefit.
But it's very good. Thank you for bringing it.
No, that's awesome. Thank you guys for.
So this is normally my part, but since we have the expert here, let's hear about this Prensado Lost Art, and then we can actually talk about how it pairs up.
So the Prensado Lost Art, it's first off, we still have the Prensado, which is one of our flagships, #1 cigar of the year back in 2010, 2011, whichever one you want to. Some people like to go by.
It was on the list of 2010.
Right. And then a lot of people, because it affects the sales of the next year, a lot of people will go that way. But so what we're doing, what we did here was we wanted to come up with something interesting. We released this at the time that we released the Black Market Esteli. So we did 2 line extensions at the same time.
2 years ago?
2 years ago, yes.
Okay.
So what we did with that was we wanted to look at these cigars, the Black Market Esteli and the Black Market and the Prensado, and we said, what makes a Prensado a Prensado? What makes a Black Market a Black Market? Because as a consumer, retailer, whatever, you see these line extensions come out all the time. And,
right.
Sometimes it's just taking a really popular name that you sell a lot of and just throwing it on it. But we wanted to go a little bit farther than that and say, if we're going to put the name Black Market on something again, if we're going to put the name Prensado on something and really take our time and craft it in that spirit, what exactly do people perceive? So specifically with the Prensado Lost Art, you're getting that Cuban semi-box press, you're getting that triple cap, you're getting that full body but like really smooth, sort of like not, it does make you wonder, like, is this more medium, is this full? Because I get people all the time who argue with me on Prensados on saying they're mild. I'm like, they're smooth.
The wrapper has always been my, like,
the wrapper is
just
definitely
so soft.
And the wrapper is very supple. Even with the Prensado, they're both very supple.
It's almost velvety, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Velvety with, like, you can feel a little bit of that toothiness to it, but nothing, over the top. So we wanted to basically come out with something that shared the Prensado name and could fit in the Prensado family, but different experience. So what we did was, where the Prensado is a little bit more subtle, it's a little bit more complex, we came out with the Lost Art, and the Lost Art's a little bit more in your face with the flavor, and it's definitely a different flavor note. One of the things that we promote with this is there's almost sort of like an oaky note to it that you get out of the cigar, and that's definitely something different from a lot of our other products. But you get that sweetness, that creaminess, a little bit of spice to it, that pepper. It's a little bit more blunt about what it is rather than being that more nuanced, sort of complex, cigar.
Prensado is. Yeah, I think that's a very rich cigar, but there's a lot of flavors all
around. A lot
around.
going on.
Yeah. I wouldn't say this is full.
Yeah, I
would describe it as more of like a medium plus. That's how I describe it in the store.
Yeah, definitely medium plus is where I would probably say that I sell it to people as a medium plus. If somebody says, I want a full cigar, but I don't want a full cigar, this is something that I put in their hands.
Yeah.
Deciphering all that communication.
It's
You're gonna be good. You're gonna
do fine, boy.
When we first got these in the Tinder Box, I loved them because I love the Prensado.
Right.
And I agree that. Well, I disagree kind of on the flavor palette. I guess I think for this one it's like more milder than the Prensado, or maybe it's smoother. Is that what I'm getting
I would
out
go
of it?
Smoother, maybe. Yeah, smoother. I could see.
Okay.
I got more the middle of the front of my tongue on this one as opposed to the Prensado. It's just kind of all over.
Yeah, I agree. It's just these. I've never had a bad Prensado Lost Art, or a Prensado for that matter, the original. So I guess it's just the construction's great. Again, this is a torpedo, right?
Correct.
And then the ones that we have in the shop are the Toros, or is that?
We have Toros, yeah.
But the velvety, the construction of this cigar, the wrap relief, it's amazing, and I like it with this whiskey. What I will say is that the Hudson Maple Cask how thick it is, it's kind of throwing this off.
Yeah, I could actually see that. I was curious to see how these two would go along because I thought with that sweetness, that little bit of that creaminess of it, I thought that would sort of go well with this. But no, I actually agree with that. It's not by any means a bad pairing, but it's definitely not one of those things where you take the sip and you smoke, and then you take the sip and you're like, oh wow, that really goes through all the way. Which that's something, when we do a lot of our pairings, and again, we work more with Glenfiddich with their portfolio. We try to go for not just that, this is a good cigar with that. We try to see the whiskey change with the cigar and the cigar change with the whiskey, sort of. So we try to go all the way through.
That's awesome.
So with this, it's kind of interesting because it's almost like going from the cigar to the whiskey. It's a really good combo, but there's something about going from the whiskey back to the cigar to me.
Yeah.
It almost adds like a tartness.
I've got an acidity.
Yeah.
I'd say
I
acidity.
would go with an acidity.
In the back of my throat, like all like the lingering parts of the maple rye, and then smoking on this, it's like again front of the tongue and everything, like the typical things. I was gonna say that they actually stand up against each other, like, but that's not a bad thing. Like we talk about pairings, a lot of times people say that pairings are just the fact that it's like
intensifies it.
Yeah, complements,
I agree 100%.
blah blah blah, changes both of them.
I agree 100%.
This one actually it stands up, but then that whole lingering part of the whiskey that we're sipping on, and then smoking this. It's if I don't do either of them for a little while, and I don't take a glass of water in the mix, like I've got a little bit, and maybe it's because I am also, and I'll preface this by saying I think I'm fighting what everyone else has had in Columbus, Ohio, and after the long weekend and everything like that. So I've had a little bit of scratchiness.
Depression.
That's a Pittsburgh.
No, I'm saying, but I don't know about you. Maybe you guys can back me up with this or not. But it kind of has a little bit of that kind of in the back of the throat, like acidity.
No, I get it completely.
You get
For me, it's like it's across like the broad side.
Yeah.
The broadest point of the tongue, like towards the back. Yeah, I definitely get that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like there's no middle section like of your tongue where this sits. It's like the tip of your tongue, and then it's like the back of the throat. Like the rye spice sits back there, and then obviously the smoke. It's just. But I think it's good. I think this is a well balanced pairing.
Yeah.
Going back to the whiskey there after several.
Let's just go back to it, Steve.
No, I'm saying kicking it back to it.
Kicking it back. Throwback.
Someone named Coleman Capetta.
Coleman fine.
My man, Rye.
Coleman's great.
Cool.
Coleman's out of Pittsburgh. He actually has a cigar brand he's pumping out.
Nice. Look forward to that.
Yeah. No, I had one, so I'll share one with you later.
Beautiful.
Very, very cool.
But I was gonna say, taking a sip of the whiskey, it literally is back to that whole. It coats the tongue all over again.
Yeah.
No matter what. So even retrohaling, getting that little that's like spice, like white pepper or whatever through the retrohale.
White pepper.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which that is an agreed upon term for me because I have not had much experience in the food world with white pepper.
Yeah.
But it's definitely.
Can I give you shit about that?
No, because I actually threw it out there that I'm saying it's an agreed upon term.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, I'm not searching.
So if I say plum,
fairies.
Yeah, but plum is an agreed upon term in the whiskey world.
I didn't know that.
Well, I didn't know the fucking white pepper was.
I've said it many times before, and I appreciate your enthusiasm in this conversation, but I'm saying
plum whiskey and a white pepper cigar. Let's see what happens.
I don't think that's going to be good.
It's not going to be good.
No, that's bad.
No white peppers, no plums.
So, tell us about this Bunsen burner that we have from
So
Alec Bradley on this table.
That's the mega burner. So what we did was we took our burner, which basically comes down to where this straightens out on the side here.
Yeah.
And we extended it. Because at the end of the day, we went, this was a 90s throwback to Tool Time, where we just wanted more power, like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's what
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen. We just Tim Allen it, Benson made it, Benson.
I have no
Binford.
idea.
Binford.
Bingo.
Tools.
Benson. That guy from the 80s. He made it.
Great show.
No. So what we did was, we basically just took something that was already cool and we just made it super cool. And it's one
you
of those.
You made it mega cool.
It's.
I like that.
It's a toy, man. I mean,
It's
this
a toy.
is the shit. This is the kind of stuff guys spend their money on, where they go, I have no practical use for this whatsoever, but I must own it. Like it's just.
Unless you want to heat like a dish.
We could have put it on right now. It'd have been warm the whole time. The mic would have probably just picked up the whole time. Like,
yeah, it's
very effective.
It is very effective.
It's very effective. It's actually really nice to light a cigar with. All right.
Yeah, it totally shows up.
Don't catch the muff on
fire.
fire.
Don't make a muff on fire? What?
Whoa.
Am I in the military?
But it is a lighter that there's literally like an on and off. You have to twist it, and then you have to get it to the right point, and then you hit the button on it, and then you have to you have to readjust it. I mean, it's
amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. They did the math.
Awesome.
You light over 5,000 cigars with it. It was funny because before Steve was like, "Cool, I guess we'll have to factor butane into the budget for 2019." I was like, "Maybe 2020, not 2019."
He said we can get you through it.
Yeah, we are.
So, can you buy this like on? Where can you get this? Like, is this even
any of our retailers that bring it in, or you can just go to alecbradley.com and buy. We do some direct to consumer stuff when it comes to our accessories or stuff like that. Yeah. We don't do any of our cigars direct to consumer. We like to leave that to our partners that sell those products. But when it comes to accessories, there's not a lot of legality with selling those direct to consumer. So they are on our website, basically the regular MSRP, and you can pick stuff like that, the regular burner, t-shirts, hats.
What's the MSRP on this one?
$80. So the regular one's $50. It holds basically 4 of the regular ones. Takes a full 8-ounce can of butane.
Yeah.
So you're good for a while. Just don't drop it. Don't go bowling with it. Don't tie it to the back of the chair. Lighter. It can be a pocket lighter depending on your pocket.
Yeah, cargo shorts.
It's got big pockets, bro. You could,
I don't.
Okay. Well, none of us do. But no one here is using it as a pocket lighter.
No, but it's amazing. I mean, for $80, I think it's kind of a steal.
Yeah,
really.
It's cool. It really is. I'm a big fan of it. I've always loved that accessory line. Even before I worked for the company, I thought the burners were some of the coolest lighters out there. And I mean, especially if you're a guy that likes to take your time and toast a cigar, and you don't have some sort of cold front coming through where the flames flying all over the place. And like a room like this, it's perfect right now. You can set it. And I like that this, as dumb as it sounds, by the design, just having that height towards it. It's not the leaning way down. You can light it right here, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So I like that sort of added height because you can actually sort of not even pick it up and just use it.
Yeah. You actually have the small one, don't you, Steve?
I think I did. I think someone
tucked away.
Dustin's got one.
Oh,
I may have had one
but
at some point.
Steve doesn't have one anymore.
Weird. No, I like it because it's actually a mix between like a torch and a soft flame.
Yeah, you get the heat benefit that you would get from the torch, but you get that sort of soft flame touch to it.
Absolutely.
Can you explain our kind of why we arrived at this like art of communication? We were talking about last night. We had a really good conversation last night with our buddy Brad Grimsley that's been on 2 times. And he's a great dude, and we really had a really good conversation with good communication last night. And
right.
It's just, I don't know, I think it's fitting, especially at this point where we are on the podcast.
So there's 2 things, really. And we're going to save it, keep you on the edge of your seat, because I know everyone's really thrilled on what I'm going to say here.
Especially Kylie.
Is she still there?
I don't know.
We don't know.
Kylie, if you're out there.
Nook's just waiting to hear about. This is a good time to talk about a hash brown surprise.
No, that's got to be on the audio as well.
That's got to be on the audio.
That might be part of your closing remarks.
This is like an intermission right now?
We're on intermission because we have to save it because we lost it at one point, yeah.
Don't lose it.
No, this is gold with you on here.
See? I don't know why you waited so long.
So this is a good time. We're 15 to 20 viewers right now. If you guys want to share it, we love it. That helps us out, get more traction, and also join us in the conversation, which I love. It's not about liking or
George
following
Sosa
us.
saw all the way in the Dominican. He shared it.
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
Nice.
I just saw it. I got the notification.
Ready?
Yes.
I'm ready. You're ready.
One is because Ryan from Alec Bradley keeps telling us that he doesn't want to be on a podcast, doesn't want to, it's everything that he hates, not hates, but doesn't enjoy. Which is hate. I'll soften it enough.
Come on, I said it. I'll own it. I don't care.
I'll soften it enough for the viewers and listeners that are just tuning in.
It's good communication.
But no, it's about. It's funny when he says, he's like, I don't really like talking much and all that stuff, but it's like when he's actually, and maybe it's that adapted personality versus the natural personality. Not split.
Yeah.
I'm saying that everyone has that natural personality, which maybe you're not as much of a talker, but when you're in the zone, when you're doing your job, when you have to adapt to what you're doing for a living or your surroundings, and maybe it's other shops you don't act quite the same, and you have to mirror that. But when you come into the Tinder Box, when you've made relationships, you're the face of, even of a company that has now multiple faces, if you will. You've got Alan Rubin, you have Alec Rubin, you have Bradley Rubin, now you have George Sosa that's kind of like the face overseas in a sense. And it's like, but to the Midwest accounts, you got Ryan, and Ryan is, everyone knows that you're the Alec Bradley rep. I mean, you represent well just by coming into the shop. Everyone kind of recognizes you. You've made a presence in our store, and I assume you've done it the same in a lot of your accounts. Maybe not all of them, just because that's not the type of reps they're looking for.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's definitely.
As far as communication, saying that you don't like to, you don't like to talk and all that stuff, you're very good at it, and I give that as a well-deserved compliment.
And I appreciate that. I really do. Maybe it's funny because I get a lot of people that are interested in this job, and like I've thought so many times about like slapping a GoPro in my car and like doing like a little in the shoes of 1 week of a cigar rep kind of thing.
Road Warrior, I believe that sign says behind you.
No. Well, it says Road Warrior Ryan Ponist. That may not be my name. We don't know. But anyway.
Shit.
Yeah, you never noticed that, did you?
Now you know where I live.
You don't even know me. I'm in the East, bro. No. It's one of those things where I do get a lot of people that are like kind of fascinated by this job. Like, and it's a thing where for us it's a balance, and just to be clear, this I'm not speaking on behalf of all cigar reps. We all have very different companies. We all have sometimes very different territories. I happen to have a pretty sizable one, and it's one of those things where like
that's going to be a soundbite, by the way.
What?
That you have a pretty sizable one.
Yeah, thank you. That's I didn't say what
Ryan
size,
Ponist.
but it's sizable. Yeah, Ryan Ponist 2019. It's like a tuna can that I can't touch the bottom of. But anyway,
hash brown surprise.
Hash brown surprise, baby. No, it's one of those things where I consider myself a very introverted extrovert, or vice versa. Like,
yeah.
I can be a very private person, but I'm very comfortable dealing with people for the most part.
I'd say an extroverted introvert.
Maybe, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
And I think what it is like, particularly with this job, being 4 years into it the way I've done it, there's a lot of times where I come home on the weekend, I just don't want to talk to people at all, because you use it up. And I've said it before, before we did the thing today, I made a comment, because I told you one of the things that made me sort of have to be like, I got to get over to these guys is because I was doing another event, and a group of guys got me to be on their little video podcast thing that they do. And
so we weren't your first.
We weren't your first. Actually, you're the third. There was one I did a long, long time ago. But point being,
I feel a little dirty.
It was somewhere I said like it takes energy to do this kind of stuff, and I think there are people that like anything else, they have a natural born talent for just being on all the time, and that's something for me where it's definitely something where when I'm done with this tonight, I'll probably just sit here and smoke a cigar and listen to you guys talk about how great it was, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm ready to go home, But,
you don't have to stay.
No, I'm gonna hang out by all means.
I like that you mentioned that though, because like at the beginning, like when we started this, like we would like talk about the podcast like right after.
Yeah.
Where I'm not exactly like you, but I'm kind of like after this, I'm sitting.
Yeah. No,
quiet.
I don't want to.
I don't want to talk.
Here's a cool little feedback of some stuff that I think is really interesting, and how much of a fucking idiot that I am for doing this to myself, but we'll go with that. So, cigars were obviously a hobby of mine since I became 18. I celebrated becoming 18 with a cigar.
Yeah.
And it just sort of was one of the things where it merged into me smoking often. And I was at an event. It was an outside event at a brewery. It was a Drew Estate event. Sam Smerkel was there. Dirty Dog, which I'm repping right now. It's my cigar mama.
And where's that?
McKeesport, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So they were doing an outside
Pittsburgh
event.
area, correct?
Pittsburgh area, yes.
Yeah.
So they were doing an outside event at Full Pint Brewing. I was out there for it. It was an awesome event. I was just making chit chat with Sam about how did you get into this job?
Basically what people do to you now.
Sort of, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is sort of interesting. Like, I honestly was just making conversation. Somehow that turned to me being shoehorned to working at the Dirty Dog, like 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And working at the Dog, the owner was really cool that he encouraged me to go.
Slid right into the slang there.
Working at the Dog.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like that. That's nice.
So he encouraged me to go check out other shops. Pittsburgh's really cool like that. A lot of the shop owners talk, get along, they visit each other's shops, they promote each other's events. Really cool.
Very much so.
So we went out there. I started working out there, and he encouraged me to go to another shop. It was a guy that just opened. I started hanging out down there, and the guy made a comment to me one time when I checked out. He was like, "Man," he goes, "I can't give you a big discount or anything." I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, I'm sure you're getting a better deal on cigars from Tim, the owner.
At the Dog.
At the Dog.
Yeah.
I like how you sleep.
Yeah, it's nice.
You're getting used to it.
Yeah, it's nice.
So
I'll stay over here.
that's fine. That's fine. You're still trying to learn how to say that town in New York right now. It's cool.
I am really. I just gave up.
Yeah, no,
I didn't
it's,
really.
it's cool. We get
I'm
it.
done.
So I went down there and I told him, and I said, he was like, "I can't give you a big discount. I'm sure you're getting a better discount." I said, "Dude, you don't have to give me any discount." I said, "Because here's the difference. When I go into the Dirty Dog on my day off and I sit down in the chair and the phone rings and nobody can get to the phone, or somebody's standing at the counter and nobody's there to ring them up because they're in the humidor dealing with somebody else, I have this thing where I just got to get up and do it." So I joke around where fucking really? No.
Dustin in the
it wasn't
chair,
even
man.
that. It was just like Steve, it just broke my concentration on looking in Steve's eyes.
I didn't know what's happening.
No, it's cool. We're all good here. But anyway, so it was that thing where I told him, I said, "Dude, when I come here and I light up a cigar and I sit in the chair, I don't see anybody at the counter. I don't hear the phone ring." And then I became a cigar rep because that made a lot of sense, because now no matter where I go, everybody's like, "Hey man, how about that Prensado?" And I'm like, I just wanted to smoke this cigar right now. I stopped working 4 hours ago. If you can believe it, I'm not working at 1 a.m. right now. But
you still do.
I still do. Yeah, I mean, it all comes with the job. It's part of the territory.
Right. Because I mean, it's not, it is a title, but I mean, you definitely represent a brand.
Yeah.
That, I mean, to what you didn't say is that you started with another brand that was smaller, and then I find out that you made it to Alec Bradley in a sense, and it's a brand that has enough out there, and it's a family business, that there's something to be kind of, in my opinion, and I don't think you're going to correct me if you think I'm wrong, but it's something to be proud of, working for someone that, and a brand that has family all over it.
Yeah.
They're really trying to do well in the industry, and it's something that it's a little bit seeming more stable.
It's different because, like, when you think about working for another company or something like that, you look at the way our company is, and then you do have to take into consideration the way the reps get along and everything. It has to do with the way the company is sort of set up, being that family business. And we very much act like a family. And you guys are giggling. Now I want in on the joke.
So Alan Wallace is out there. I assume he's still listening. But
is that a pseudonym? Is that Alan Rubin? He just
came
on as Alan Wallace.
Just laughed out loud. Laying in bed with my 5-year-old daughter watching your podcast. She just asked after 10 minutes of watching, quote, "Why are we watching guys smoke cigars?" End quote.
Well, that's amazing.
Well,
that's amazing.
I mean, because it's entertaining. I don't know.
I guess.
Because you like watching us?
I don't know.
The other reason that I brought this up, if I want to continue.
Oh, yeah, please do, before we end up with a 10-hour episode. We're here at 2 a.m. just going Bourbon and BS podcast.
No, I mean, the other reason that, Jake asked, kind of come back to that whole thing where it's the reason we came up with this was not just because Ryan, he's, again, going back to that, he's very effective when he wants to communicate, at least from a professional standpoint. And I got to be honest, he's actually created a rapport, or developed a rapport with several of our customers, that he actually does another side event, in a sense, with one of our former employees that he loves Alec Bradley so much that it's kind of like, yeah, I'll come in, hang out at your guys' place, and get you some swag, because there's a lot of Tinder Box, customers that go to this. But it's like Eric, who's been on the podcast, he'll host people, and it's kind of like a sponsored, yet not officially sponsored, because it's not an actual account, get together by Alec Bradley. It's all Alec Bradley cigars.
Right.
So, but The other aspect of it is that we were sitting in the shop last night. We're talking, and we're talking about a lot of things as one does after closing hours. We're talking about Cuba. We're talking about people in the shop. We're talking about that night, and it kind of went on to the whole thing of communication, and just the art of communication came up as we were getting ready to leave, and I was like, that's a great idea for the podcast tomorrow night, because it's something that you deal with every day. You talk about sales, you talk about just hanging out, and you talk about different conversations. And in a cigar shop, which a lot of this podcast is based on, is the culture, for better or worse, of a typical cigar shop. And there's a lot of conversations that happen in that. And then it was interesting to me, and I'll kick it over to Jake here to kind of expand on last night's and what we want to talk about tonight. But it was interesting to me that as Brad, Jake, and I continued to have this discussion, the things that were brought up about how people communicate, how people listen, how people effectively contribute to a conversation from all different aspects, the conversation actually, I think, got more effective and more, even, not that it wasn't respectful in the beginning between the three of us, but it was almost like everyone really did start sitting more back in their chair, listening, asking more questions, doing these things that kind of we lead into tonight with this conversation tonight is, when we do the podcast, we try to have effective communication, but there have been growing pains. There have been those issues where it's like people are talking over each other. People are we talked about like latching on to something early on in someone's...
Ryan just did it. Did you notice that?
A little bit, but
pull back? Yeah, no,
you just did it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it reminded me very much of a story that happened at Alec Bradley, where I was talking to one of our vice presidents, and we were having a conversation about something. And this might sound terrible, but I think it's great. We were talking. I was addressing an issue that I was having, or a thought that I had, and when I brought it up, they were just constantly just ready to come back with that line, and I could tell they started to interrupt basically what I was saying to get there. And like I said, I need you to just sit for 1 second, and I need to tell you something. So right now, the way this conversation is going, you are listening, or I said you are waiting for the opportunity to respond to what I'm saying instead of actually hearing what I'm saying. And I need you to stop it. And I need to put this out there. I want you to let me finish my thought, or let me go through everything. And he apologized, and I said it all, and he said, you know what, I wasn't looking at it like that. And it was that whole thing of...
And you believed him.
It was, absolutely. It was that, it's that football grabbing the player by the helmet for a second and staring at him in the face and saying, like, this is what I'm trying to tell you, and I need you to hear it.
Yeah, but from what you said, like, it was, like, in a respectful manner.
Absolutely.
Most of the time, like, people would get pissed off.
Face,
me in general, it's like, okay, we were talking about that last night.
Right.
Were you done with your...
Yeah,
were you done with your statement?
Go ahead.
We
don't have to get like super overly polite. When you're having a podcast, you're having a conversation like this, there are some things where there's interjections.
Yeah,
but
we have whiskey.
And there's whiskey
involved. And good whiskey and good cigars.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because that's exactly what like Brad, Steve, and I were talking about is Brad was explaining that he's one of those people that, and I'm the same way, where if you're talking and you're like in this elaborate conversation or just in a regular conversation, it doesn't matter, and someone is so eager because they latched on to a point that you made or something that you said in that statement, they're so eager at it, and it is exciting. Like, I know because at the beginning of the podcast, that's what I did. Like when Steve would say something, and that's why I write shit down now, even though I'm not right now, but...
I noticed that.
Yeah.
After last night's conversation.
Yeah, I know. But that's why I write shit down, because I tend to forget if I'm truly listening, and then if I'm not listening, I have to think of what exactly I'm going to say the whole time, and then I don't listen.
Because you don't want to forget.
Because I don't want to forget. Yeah. And so, anyways, Brad was explaining that people do that to him, and after so many times, he just shuts down. And where he either kind of leaves the conversation completely, where if they're sitting at a table or whatever, he leaves and goes somewhere else in the cigar shop or anywhere. And I said, well, yeah, I'm kind of the same way, like both. If there's something, and if I notice after time and time again, I'm trying to make make a point, but you latch onto something, and then I try to re-engage, but you're still stuck on this thing, and you're constantly like trying to interrupt and stuff, and want to make your point, and want to include yourself and make an example for yourself, like make it relatable.
Are you talking about me specifically,
no,
or are you talking about one?
In general,
and I've done that.
In general,
no.
I'm not taking a dig. In general, I think when someone's trying to relate to you, that's exactly what they do, and that's what Brad and I was saying was at that time. Like that's when I like sit back, like nope, I'm done. I'll wait. Like I'll just completely wait until everyone's done talking, and either I say it or the conversation goes dead.
There doesn't have to be a victor in every conversation. Even there's times where you're having a conversation, and not to get too far off topic and get onto something controversial or something, but like one of the things that I like about cigars is because I hear feedback from a lot of people.
Yeah.
That you can have a lot of conversations over a cigar that you would never normally have. And in fact, one time at Eric's event, there was a gentleman there that was from Africa, and we were talking about sort of like race in the United States and stuff like that, and that was basically what we ended up talking about. Like we ended up getting on cigars after that conversation, and I said that's what I love about this is the fact that if you and I were in a bar, one of us might have hit the other one by now, or got into an altercation or got all flared up. I said, but over a cigar, there's something about it that causes you to sort of just pause and reflect a little bit more and appreciate what the other person's saying. And, talking about something, say, like race or something like that, I think everybody wants there to be a victor in that conversation, to be like, oh my God, that fixes everything. That's perfect. But even as much as people want a victor in that, you're not going to get one. And sometimes that's okay.
Yeah, there's certain topics that, it's not... Yeah, I get what you're saying about wanting to be a victor, and I think the other way to say that for me is, and I think it's a little bit more innocent, is that you want the other person to, at the very least, understand what you mean or where you're coming from, and if you don't agree with it, at least you agree that you understand what I'm saying.
Right, or you acknowledge it.
Acknowledge it, you know what I mean? It's not just that I'm wrong, it's literally that, like...
I see your point, but...
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's really interesting. I mean, and like you said, Steve, it was really funny because I was actually doing it. Like last night we were sitting there, and like I got really excited, and like Brad said something, and like I realized I kind of said like one syllable out of a word, and I like jumped back, and I was like, I'm doing exactly what we're talking about
this, and now you're actually doing it.
Yeah, it was funny because I kind of sat back and I'm like, sorry, Brad. Like, but it's really cool to kind of dissect it, and it doesn't have to be one of those things where you have to be on the edge of your seat all the time. But I think a lot of people mess up with it, where they get so eager, they get so excited about one simple point, and we talk about it a lot on the podcast. Where if you're not listening, then how can you even contribute to what the other person is saying? Right. So.
What I think, so there's times when you're listening that you do forget that point, to go back to that whole thing where people latch on to, and it's that they're either so excited or they are worried they're going to forget their point, and they think it's a really good point, but they don't realize that by doing that, you're basically negating what the person's saying completely, like the overall thought, right? Because it's like you just, it's like a quick story or anecdote or a point that they're trying to make. And it's like you just latch on the first part. And it's like, well, that was actually, I'm going to actually have a conflicting side of that by the end of my statement. But now you're latching on. What happens is, and it was funny. It was a great metaphor that Brad had in there last night, where he said, I feel like sometimes when I'm actually having this conversation with someone or a group of people, you know what I mean, and someone, I'm talking kind of to the group, or more specifically to another point, or I'm asking questions, and then someone else like just jumps in and then does it again and then does it again. It's like I'm waiting in line at the bank or waiting in line somewhere, and someone just literally just ditches me and just steps right in front of me, like nothing that I'm doing is as important to what they're doing, that they have to be in front of me. No holds barred, no rules, just flat out like, nope, all right, I'm in now. And you're like, but I've been standing here, I've been talking for the last, 20 minutes, and now you just walk up and take my spot.
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
And then you said, no, it's more like they close the bank.
Yeah, at a certain point, I said it's at some point that person ditches you, then they get up there and like, hey, you want to go lunch? And then they leave, and then you're just like looking at an empty counter. You're like, what the fuck?
Right.
Now, shit, look at that line. I got to get in the back of that line.
Right.
Because you follow the rules to a point. But when I look at the art of communication, effective communication, we got into it a couple weeks ago with Danny from Everyday Design.
Yep.
And we were talking about networking. And a lot of times that's a big part of conversation, especially if you slow yourself down. If you find yourself to be one of those people that are constantly objecting, or constantly interjecting, if you frame a lot of your conversations, and this is, I think, an exercise that does take some practice and takes some effort, that you are looking for. As you're listening to someone, instead of, and you may have that point that you want to like really kind of contribute, and you just have to hold on to it, and hope that you can multitask, hold on to it, like whatever the exercise you do for that point is, like either you start tapping your leg and that's your reminder of what you want to say, but you're still listening. I mean, there are these little things that you can do, but it's ask questions, because that was something we talked about on the networking side of things, is that when you go into a networking event, we go into sales, there's that whole thing of, we used to do it like the age-old thing is, sell me this pen, right? Sell me this pen. How do you sell it? Sell this pen, or sell me this cell phone was another real popular one when I was going through sales. Well, not only that, but it's like, I can come at you with this and just be like, hey, let me tell you about this pen. It's got a cap on it, so you're not going to get any pen, ink on in your pockets. It's got a nice rubber grip, so you actually can do all this. I can do all that stuff, or I can flat out lead in and be like, oh, you're in here for a pen. Do you have a pen now?
Right.
And you're like, or do you have a cell phone now? Absolutely have a cell phone. You absolutely have a pen. It's like, it sounds silly, but it's like, I do have a pen. Like, what do you like about it right now? Because you're in here for a new one. Like, what do you like about your pen now? What do you like about your cell phone now? I'm like, well, I like to, like shoot pictures. I like to text. I like to surf the web.
Yeah.
I like to do all this stuff. I'm like, okay, like what don't you like about it? Because you're obviously in here for a new one. So is there something wrong with it, or why are you in here for a new one? And then you have this conversation with this person, and the whole time you're doing that, both sides of that equation, both sides of that conversation and that sales pitch are being answered at that point, because you have a job to do. And in a sense, they have a job or a duty for themselves that they want to have resolved, hopefully, to get a new pen, get a new cell phone. It's the same thing when you're talking to someone where they're actually trying to talk to you about it, or to the group. You don't have to, again, be very aggressive with it, but there are these things where you can actually, it's like, well, tell me about that a little bit more. Latch on to certain parts of it, because that way, you're engaging, and you might get more out. I think you will get more out of it.
Make them feel appreciated.
Well, on top of that, you might actually get more from that.
Right.
Because you're taking everything for face value, and again, we have to remember that not everyone's very effective with their words. They can't always get their entire thought out or paint that picture for you entirely. So if you go off of face value, you may take it a different way than what they're saying. I'm not saying conflict or anything else. Just all right. Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. So I think sales is everything. We had a podcast about that, but I think the communication with sales, when you talk about the way you approach conversations, when you talk about the way you approach personalities, how you have to actually have a self-appreciation and diagnosis of your personality, so that you know who you are actually talking to, and you being in sales obviously know that.
Well, I think a lot of times, one point to like what you're saying, especially talking about like when you got the round table discussion with a lot of people, I think there's a certain anxiety that exists on a lot of people that the moment to say what you have to say is fleeting. And perhaps when that moment passes, you're not going to get that opportunity to add. Or maybe what you're going to say isn't necessarily going to be as effective if you wait in a minute, or if the conversation moves on, or something like that.
Or if you say it in a different time, like the effectiveness is kind of key, really.
Absolutely.
Because then it's not either funny, or it comes out it's not the striking
especially with when you're dealing with, something like comedy or being funny, timing is everything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
My great uncle used to say you can tell a good comedian because they can read the phone book and it'll be funny. And there's something to that delivery, that pitch, that timing that's just incredibly meaningful to what they're doing. And when it comes to sales, when you made the comment about a self-appreciation, a lot of times even from my background, coming out of sort of like a pseudo law enforcement position, there was a veteran that once said something to me that was very important, or at least that I've always delved into, where he said, a lot of times when you're dealing with people, you're always dealing with them in their worst. And maybe that's not necessarily a thing with sales, but the big thought process that he used to always go is he used to always tell people, listen, I'm here to help. I understand you're in a bad position. I'm sorry for that, but what can I do? And going into sales, like especially the position I had when I came into my job, because it wasn't necessarily a popular thing to sell Alec Bradley when I came in, and people did have some certain bitterness towards the company and stuff like that. That was the big thing to me, was when I went in and somebody had something to say, as long as in your mind you kept going, they're not mad at you. They're mad at their situation, they're mad at the company, they're mad at the product. Sure. So as long as you know that they're not mad at you, there's no reason that I need to bark at somebody, or there's no reason I need to get defensive. Yeah. Because what they're saying is probably 100% legitimate, and you're just there to do the best you can to help them.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. We had a couple comments.
Sure.
Raina Morgan, she's actually a good friend of mine. She's in the Mopar group.
Nice.
She has a beautiful Hellcat Charger. It's B5 blue.
Ow.
So, Raina, yeah. But anyway, she says it's amazing how many she's in real estate. It's amazing how many real estate agents do not communicate, and that's the key to any smooth real estate deal. So Absolutely. It's kind of mentioning back to like the sales pitch, really. But I look at sales, it's much like we have it in the cigar shop, and I think like Steve's really good at it, and I think we're all really good at it. It's just normal, like basic conversation. Like if you can have like a normal conversation without like trying to slide in like a sales pitch in there, like you said, Ryan, like timing too, right? Yeah. You're opening up like a can, like and then you're seeing where you can go from there.
I actually have a great Tinder Box Easton story about that I actually recite.
Go ahead.
I was in there for a product spotlight for Christmas one time, and a guy came in with his wife, and somebody handed me off to them to talk to him. And I said, hey, you familiar with the product, blah, blah, blah. Now I went into the whole spiel. I went into this is this cigar, this is the rating, this is the tasting notes, this is the story, this is the whatever. And the reason why this gets repeated is because a lot of people will hear me talk about all this stuff sometimes. They'll be like, why do you say all that? And I always say, you don't know what somebody's going to latch onto.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of buyer they are. You don't know what urges them to buy things. So you kind of have to put it all out there. If they're not going to volunteer something, you have to put it out there and let them make a decision.
Yeah.
And the reason why this was interesting to me was because the guy picked up a handful of cigars, and they got in line, him and his wife, and I needed a minute to just go eat because we were busy that day. So I'm pounding some Chipotle real quick, and I happen to overhear them, and they're like sort of bickering behind me. And
after they purchased, or
they were waiting in line to purchase.
Got it.
And basically, the sum of the story was the woman is arguing with the guy over why he picked up a Nica Puro, and the reason was,
which is one of your cigars for those that you don't
correct,
know.
Yes. And the reason is, when I explained the Nica Puro, I gave the rating, I gave the sizes available, told him the story, and when I made the comment about what the cigar was, I said, it's a very stereotypical Nicaraguan Puro. I said, you're going to get some coffee, some toffee, and a little bit of spice to it, and some pepper.
Yeah.
And that was all I said. She disagreed with why he picked it up because I didn't say enough things about it, and that was something that stuck out with her, because when I said, oh, you got a Prensado, you got leather, you got cocoa, you got this, you got that. Because there was these exorbitant lists on some of these of like the tasting notes, but Nica Puro, I said 3 things. To her, she felt like there was no value to it, and he's like, well, that's what I like, that's what I want to pick up.
Yeah.
So there was this whole disconnect right there where like she felt like the value wasn't there because those things weren't being expounded upon.
Do you think you were selling to the couple or to the guy?
The guy, hands down. He was upset with his purchase because he thought he was spending money on something.
And did you ask him about the pen and the cell phone type of? Or
I did.
You just roll through it?
He actually came up with a pen and a cell phone in his hand. He might have been Ronald Reagan. I don't know.
No, but you know what I mean. Like you think that might have been an effective tool to throw in there?
What do you mean? Talking about like what do you like to smoke?
Yeah.
So I did that.
Okay.
He wasn't giving me a lot. So like I said,
so
he wasn't volunteering a lot. So what I'm left
metaphor.
with, just throw everything at him with the kitchen sink and
While
let
you're
him make
there.
a decision. You know what I mean? Because like I said, you don't know what they're going to grab onto. But he apparently saw something in what I said that made him want to pick that cigar up. And she completely did not. So it's very interesting.
What did Mock just say? It's pretty funny.
Your guests might appreciate this. I tell people jokingly that. So Mark is the one that I threw it. And Mark, you tuned in late, showed off the ashtray that you guys or you sent me for the housewarming gift. But he's a retired NYPD. Says I tell people jokingly that I talked people into handcuffs for 30 years. So talking a shop owner into buying my cigar should be easy.
100%.
Which, and to Mark's point, I think that should be easy. And that's the key words of that, is that it should be easy. But again, it's a different mentality sometimes, going shop to shop or perp to perp or whatever you want to call it, right? You know what I mean? Arrestee.
Well,
the term arrestee. I'm being arrested. I'm the arrestee.
The one major difference is, and believe me, I understand where Mark's coming from on that. And I made this joke the other day where I used to tell people, in my past life, there was always, hey, we could do this easy or we could do it real easy. And the one advantage that Mark had in his pocket was...
What's your past life?
At the end of the day, he's going to put somebody in handcuffs one way or the other. Whether they want to get in them or he's going to put them in them, that's going to be a different story. Right. So
that's right.
By all means, it saves himself... That's right. That's going to save him a lot of time and possibly a lot of headache. But with cigars, like I always say, like you could be a great salesman. I can go in, I can give you a deal, I can work with you, I can hear what you have to say, I can use our relationship, I can do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you make that decision to write the check.
Yeah.
And even though I can do my best to do it, it's still at the end of the day a very consensual business.
The way I know that you're an effective salesperson in this industry, or in a lot of industries, right?
Because I'm sleeping on your couch tonight.
You might be.
Okay.
No, it's absolutely the fact that when someone says to Brian, even to me, because I'm the one that does the communication a lot of times with certain accounts, even though I don't write the checks, I don't, I can order, but I always okay it by the person that's holding the bankroll, right? But it's, hey, that sounds good. Hey, I tell you what, is there any way I can talk, like just being honest, is there any way I can talk you into bringing on 2 or 3 boxes of this as well, because it would really help me out? And I look at that sales tactic. If that's the first interaction, second interaction, huh?
I hate that sales.
I get that, but when you've been doing business with someone for several years, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, you know what? Like you're gonna order this eventually, especially if you're gonna order it eventually. Like, hey, I know you're ordering, but it's like if you're trying to add a new line or whatever. I never disagree with the sales tactic, especially once you've had a developed relationship. But I will say that you better be able to handle another no, because it's like, hey, I tell you what, no, I completely understand. Unfortunately, we're gonna pass on that. And there's at that point, it's like that's hearing no.
Yeah.
And that's also another effective part. And we're getting into sales a lot right now, but it's like that's another effective part of communication.
Yeah.
Is the rejection. The rejection of your opinion, rejection of what you're asking, rejection of what hearing no, not only in sales, but hearing no in any life conversation that you have, whether it's someone that you're a significant other with, whether it's someone in your family, whether it's someone that you work with, someone that you're just fucking having a conversation at a cigar shop. Hearing the word no needs to be something that you are okay with, and you're okay with actually listening to, and then hopefully hearing out the why or the opinion coming at you with that, and then it's okay for you to disagree with it. But again, it's about learning where it's coming from and opening your ears and opening your mind to what they're saying.
Well, and opening your mind and acknowledging the fact of what they just said and making that known. I think that's where some people get it mixed up, where you're having a normal conversation, whether it be sales or in life, and you're talking and then you say your point and they don't even fucking not acknowledge like what you just said. And they're, they just go into their spiel of what they were going to say anyways. And it's kind of like, well, cool. This isn't very fun, and
that's where that push.
Right. That's where I kind of just back off and I just let the person talk. I get out of it. But to tie that back, not to get too much on the sales like what Steve said, but
no, but I like your side of sales.
Like mine's really interesting now with, I didn't know if you knew, Ryan, but my newest job is with a cemetery and I'm selling plots basically.
That's fucking awesome.
So
I love that reaction.
That's fucking awesome.
So it's kind of interesting.
You're gonna need this.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta say.
Yeah.
No, you're gonna.
Well, yeah, but I don't. But in my heart though, like I have more of a deeper feeling towards it because it's like it's not about just selling the plots for me. It's like I want to make sure that like everything's taken care of for these people.
100%.
Like they're dealing with, and I'm sure it's the same way with any sales, but especially when you're dealing with death. And I don't want to get too morbid, but when you're dealing with something like that and people are thinking about their loved ones, it's definitely tough. And this is somewhat of my frustration with my boss that I love, but he's worried about the sales, but it's also like you can't come in there and I'd throw
someone buying a plot.
Yeah, in a day. It's like,
right.
It's like buying a car, even more serious than that.
Right.
So it's like I'm trying to build a rapport with this family, and it may not even come about until a month later.
Right.
You know what I mean? But as long as they feel comfortable with me, then I'm in. Because I built a relationship with them, not just as a customer, but as people in general.
That's a big thing. I mean, actually, believe it or not, in my life, there's been several careers that I was fixated on for a while, and for a period of time, mortician, funeral director was one of them. So
really,
that's definitely hands down. And a lot of that came from I had a friend that passed away very, very young. And that was something that spurred actually from that, was the fact that I felt that person was very good at what they were doing, in the sense that I didn't feel like, and at the end of the day, it wasn't my family, but like it was, I was the best friend. I was very much involved in a lot of that kind of stuff because, when you're 14, 13, very different experience. Nobody really expects to undergo that. And that was something where, going through all that and being like, holy shit, like this guy like really had everything taken care of where we didn't have to worry about anything other than mourning. And that's sort of what you're there to do. You know what I mean? You're there to basically hopefully try to take something off the plate as painlessly and effortlessly and easily as possible.
Yeah, and like you said, it's kind of like our sales pitch where, and not to give too much away, but it's like I get more money from pre-need sales where if you're coming in buying, there hasn't been a death at that time,
right? Then
you can like make payments and do all this and that. But the sales pitch is kind of like, well, you're going to need this if you really want to be here.
Hands down.
If you really want to be here, then you should get this started now, because when it happens, it's like we need this now before the burial's done.
Right.
So it's like either plan now or worry about it later, and it's all done in one way.
Right.
And it's probably going to be more expensive.
Right. The thing I like about what you're doing, and I look back at like the moving industry that I was involved in.
Yeah.
It's something that you need, right? So it's like, how are you going to do it? Like you don't need to be buried at Green Lawn, where he works, right? You don't need to, but if you are actually in the conversation,
you don't need to be buried. You get cremated.
You don't.
Shot in the fireworks like me.
As you go. But I'm saying like if that's what you want to do, then it is a matter of it's like, all right, so these are the options, and you're just laying it all out there for them. And that's, again, we go back to the whole communication thing. If you don't ask, if you don't present it a certain way where it's like you're not necessarily trying to win, you're just trying to get the thought out so that they actually have something to reflect on, something to actually take in and be like, you know what, that makes sense. And at the very least, it's like, I can't afford the payments you're saying. And like, that's fine, you know what I mean? Like if you can't afford that. And if you don't want to push, but you're also a salesperson, so it's like what can you afford? If you don't feel comfortable asking that, and you have options, then it's like you're not effectively communicating that, right? Because you're just like, okay, well, we tried. You're still gonna die. We'll be here. You know what I mean? It's like you can't go that route. It's like, all right, so if this is what you want to do, I just want to make sure you have all the information, all the options,
right?
And I tell you what. It kind of does come across as like selling a car where you're just like, all right, well, if you don't want to sign up today, that's okay. But I will say to you that if this is where you want to be buried, while you are working, while you are doing this, while you don't, and I don't know if you do ask, but it's like, do you have life insurance? Yeah. Because it's like, I don't know if you're allowed to ask that question.
No, we do.
But it's like, if you don't ask that question, it's kind of like, all right, well, that's fine. So like,
how do you expect to pay for this?
Yeah, how's your retirement? It's like, you don't want to push, but it's like, this is a fact of life. And say you are religious, say you do want to do this, it's family tradition, whatever it might be, you want to be buried here.
Yeah.
It's like what I was saying. It's like you want, like going back to my moving days, you want to move.
Yeah.
Like you need to move for whatever reason. So you're either doing it yourself or you're having someone do it. And then it's a matter of, like you were saying, like you don't want to give away too much, but companies are out there to make money. So we did have, if you offer packing services, if you sell packing services, if you sell boxes, if you sell unpacking services, those extra things that not everyone has in their budget, but if you don't ask them, then they're not going to go with it. And if they don't go with the packing service, it's like, hey, well, where are you getting your boxes? Because we talked about the fact that you have 50 boxes to move.
Yeah.
So do you have those 50 boxes, or can I send you over this, or can I talk to you about what it would give? You know what I mean? It's like, because you're doing it, yeah, you're trying to make a living. Like, no, like, who are you trying to fool? Like, you're not working, for no salary, like, you have to put food on the table. So if someone else on the other side of the conversation is sales.
And not just that, but granted, you're in a little bit different, well, you can potentially be in a little bit different scenario, but a lot of times when you're talking to somebody and you just sort of cavalierly have the discussion about it, it does often make somebody feel like this isn't a big deal, this is normal, this is the way everybody goes through it. You might have a little bit different scenario because, you don't want to very cavalierly talk about where Uncle Henry's going to go, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, if somebody's thinking about it in the future, like, hey man, everybody's going to do this at some point or another, why not today, But
that's the exact point. I'm glad you bring that up, because that's how I actually go about it, where I'm, my manager, and again, he's a great guy, but he's the side where it's pretty direct, and he's very, I guess, appropriate with the families. But my instance, it's kind of like, once again, like, I'm building rapport. Like, if this is going to take time, then fine. Like, even and maybe it's wrong, but I even say, like, hey, I know this is a lot of money.
Right.
But one thing is that this is for certain.
Well,
so it's either, I'll give you time to think about it. You can go home, think about it. Can I call you next week and see where you stand?
It's not necessarily going to be a one-step sale.
Right. And I know that. But what I did want to ask you guys, like, even in the businesses that you guys have been in, and I'll ask it for myself, is that because we're all good guys around this table, where
debate. You knew that was coming. There might be some comments come through.
But I don't give a shit. I like you guys. But so what I'll say is
I'll be your friend.
And what I'll ask is that
I'll be your huckleberry.
Oh, I was just thinking.
At the very beginning, though, at the conversation, like, I watch you, Ryan, like, when you come into the Tinder Box, and at the very beginning, I didn't know how to take you when I first started. I didn't know how to take anybody because I was new, right? I was a new guy. Like, I had all these...
You talking about working there, or you talking
at the
about...
Tinder Box.
All right.
And, it's kind of like, well... I know him, but I don't think...
No, I'm asking when you started working, or when you were...
When I started working.
Hanging out, okay.
When I started working, it's kind of like, well, should I introduce myself? Do they introduce themselves to me? Like, how do they know? Blah, blah, blah. But what I have noticed, like, through you, Ryan, when you come to the cigar shop, like, you're very conversational with people, where it's very, like, exactly what you're saying, very nonchalantly, like, weeding in, and it's not necessarily about sales, but I disagree with, like, what you say about yourself is that you do like conversation, you do like talking to people, and you're very nonchalantly talking about, you ask you how their day is and what they like to smoke, if they do like to smoke and stuff like that, and I think that's an in, and I don't think, it's not, my main question is that when you guys, like, are talking, when you were in your old job, Steve, or right now, Ryan, when is there ever a time, like, where your very first words out of your mouth, you may say, like, how are you? Are you even thinking of sales at that point? Because I don't.
I don't. Yeah, for the most, like, there are times, and I think that's getting to know accounts and their needs, and that's a big thing to me is to me, I've found that I've done a lot more business not talking business than I have. But that's something I think that, I don't want to say is unique to cigars, but cigars is very much a relationship type business where, you know, I've been in accounts after hours sitting on a chair talking about Cuba or whatever, or life or girlfriends or whatever. And then maybe it's something as simple as watching somebody light a cigar up and saying like, wait a minute, you like what do you do? What's that? Or what are you doing? And then like all of a sudden you start finding out like, well, hey, I have this house thing that I do and blah blah blah. Well, hey, did you ever consider doing this?
Yeah.
You know, it's there's something about going in and being blunt with sales that
it's very off-putting.
For cigars, I often explain it, I feel very bipolar at times. Because I'm in my car, I'm motherfucking everybody, I'm wishing the worst of everybody on the road.
Is that what you did today on the way here?
100%.
About
the shit.
I like it. I like it.
Jake and I?
No, not at all.
Road rage.
Everybody on the road. I pointed out there was a person with a Suzuki. I just took offense to that.
You still make that?
Apparently,
I just took offense.
It's just everything on, like, and you're fucking trying to get there on time. You want to do a good impression, like blah blah blah, and then I fucking walk in the door and I have to act like I'm all the time in the fucking world because
Not
cigars. Well, just in general.
A little bit tonight.
Just in general, a little bit tonight. But seriously, like this is a cigar takes time, and that's what. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever seen is there's comedians in cars getting coffee.
Love that
with
series.
Larry David. Did you ever see that one?
Yes,
It's like one of the
yes.
first ones. And they get on a topic about cigars, and it was this beautiful thing that they did. Just talk about
Good old Steve
cigars.
Harvey,
And
too.
one of the things that they mentioned was a cigar takes time, and that causes somebody to be open to things, blah blah blah. And if I came in and I walk up to you, Steve, and I go, "How's that Prensado doing?" You know, and I'm fucking just chain smoking, fucking like this, and just, that doesn't make you feel good about it. So you have to come in. Even when I smoke cigars, people say, "How many cigars a year?" or "How many cigars do you smoke?" And I say, "I smoke about 10 cigars a year." And they go, "That's fucking bullshit. I saw you light up 4." And I said, "This is fucking street credit. This is so I think I'm one of you. I don't care."
Wow.
Like, how many times do I sit down and actually enjoy a cigar? That's not an everyday thing. You know what I mean?
Not for you, no.
No, absolutely not. Like, a lot of times, this is the key to the door. You know what I mean? This is what opens the door up. This is what makes people, oh, wow, he smokes cigars. I wonder what he likes.
Are you enjoying your cigar now?
After I did that fucking thing, no, but, you know, and for everybody at home, I was
That's
just
also gonna be a
fucking
gift.
rapidly,
Is it a
oh
gift
yeah,
or a
hands down,
gift?
just fucking, I could work a
Fist
little
in
bit
it?
of, work a little bit of wrist in it, but anyway. Ladies, take note. This is a man's podcast.
Wow.
Actually, I'm sorry, and some guys. I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. It's a new world.
We got a lot of identifications out there
2019.
now.
Yeah, whatever.
Let's not get started on that.
Yeah, no, we won't. But still, what I'm saying is like, it's all part of. It's all part of. You have to have, I think, a pulse on your industry, and you have to have a pulse on your customers. And you have to know what they like and what they respect. And there's some people where we just do business and that's what it is. And then there's other people that actively want to get involved and say, how do we do this and how do we do that? You know.
So if I could actually transition a little bit.
I mean, you could.
Based off of, I know I can, if you'll allow me to. Based off of what we're talking about, because a lot of times the sales conversation is very, very easy because we talk about sales. You guys are in sales. I've been in sales. I'm technically in retail is sales.
We all
right?
are.
Yeah. But like all the conversations we're having right now about having those techniques of sales and how to do it, how to have those conversations. When people come to you, where you're cold calling, the amount of effort. I mentioned earlier that you're doing it because it's in a sense it's for a paycheck. Like whether or not you believe in it, whether or not you do that, but when it comes down to it, the reason that you applied for that position is because maybe you thought it'd be cool, maybe you thought you'd really enjoy the job, and hopefully you do enjoy the majority of it. If you're not enjoying, first of all, side note, if you're not enjoying the majority of it, and you have the ability to seek something else out, do it in a smart way. We've had those conversations before on the podcast, and find that good path to do it.
I don't care what you do in life. My great uncle said it best. He told me, he said, whatever you do in life, I want you to do it the best you possibly can. I don't care if you're a fucking bum.
Right.
You be the best goddamn bum on the fucking block.
Yeah. Janitor always gets that bad rap on that metaphor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You're going to be the best goddamn janitor. It's like, janitors are kind of like, that's a good job.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, at the end of the day, like, I think everybody makes jokes about, you know, somebody that works in fast food or somebody that works at a grocery store. At the end of the day, if you got fucking hustle and you're out there making a paycheck, motherfucker, good for you, man. I love it. I love to see somebody. We were down. I know you got a point. Give me 1 sec. We were down. I'm fucking. This is it, baby. We're fucking.
You're terrible. We're terrible at talking.
No,
Cheers. That's fucking great.
We're terrible at talking in front of people.
I got sugar and I got rye in me. We're making this happen. Syrup. That's scissor. But anyway, we're down in Honduras, and it was amazing because we're going to one of the factories. Later. Absolutely. Just one momento, por favor. So we were going to one of the factories down in Honduras, and Honduras is obviously, you know, there's a lot of poor areas, and there's a lot of people just sort of
third world country,
whatever. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a part where there's a kid that ran out. Like there's always people asking you for money or whatever. And this kid ran out and he starts cleaning the windows of the bus. And one of our reps, Michael Cushenberry, our Midwest rep, he just started fucking going nuts. He was like, yeah! You know, like he's fucking getting it. And he was like, I just love to see it. Like in the middle of all of this, people sitting around fucking absorbing the sunlight, not doing a fucking thing. You got this young kid out there and he's fucking trying to do something, man.
Who taught him that?
Right. You know what I mean? Like that's a whole fucking topic right there. But yeah, you know, it was just interesting to see that kid go out there and be like, fuck this, I'm getting paid. You know what I mean? Like, that was awesome. That was amazing. You know?
I agree.
Transition away.
So right. So all of that, the hustle, right? So we're talking about the sales and everything like that. What I was going to get back to is about the other side of the communication, getting away from sales a little bit, but not entirely leaving it behind in the conversation is the fact that the things you do for a living, when there's something in it for you, when you have skin in the game, if you can transition or carry that into everyday conversation, you will ask more questions. You will be more intent on hearing what that person has to say. If you're a good salesperson, if you have those communication skills where you're actually listening to what they actually fucking need, as opposed to what you want to give them, that's the great in between there. What we were talking about earlier, what we're talking about with the sales side of it, is that you're bringing that interest because you have skin in the game. You have skin in the game with this conversation, no matter what the fuck you're talking about. You literally you're very intrigued and you actually care about that person.
Bicep, man, he's getting into this. Look at that.
But do you get what I'm saying? Is that my whole thing is that if you have any interest in what you're actually talking about, if you don't have any interest, disengage, fucking leave the room, do whatever.
Why even show up?
If you're trying to have a good conversation with someone,
shoot me a fucking email.
Then listen to it. Yeah, shoot an email that says no reply necessary at the end of it because what the fuck, like you're not going to read it anyways. But that's my whole thing is that if you actually bring these skills to everyday life, you bring that intent in everyday conversation, I think not only will that other person or that group of people you're talking with or talking to back and forth, I'm not saying talking to, you're having a discussion with, you'll have a more effective communication in that because you are now more invested. And we've been alluding to this, and I think this is going to be a topic next week, is you're present in each moment. And that's what we're going to talk about for next week. But I mean, I'm trying to not get into that yet. We've been holding off because I've been really...
Steve's really been itching out.
And it might be the worst podcast, but what I'm saying is if you're present in that conversation, if you bring that intent, if you bring that action to it for both sides of the conversation on your part, you may bring something else out of that other person, and you both parties will get something more out of that communication because you've had a more intentional conversation.
So this is interesting. There's and I'm kind of regurgitating something because I don't do podcasts, but I am a YouTube guy. I watch a lot of people on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there's one that
we're on YouTube.
Well, fuck, maybe I'll just watch you guys instead of listening to him. Plus, I get to see Steve's spot. No. So anyway, one of the groups I follow is the Game Grumps, which is just two grown men making dick jokes playing video games, and it's fucking awesome for me. But occasionally they get into really deep sort of fucking, of course, what else would I be doing on YouTube? Fucking kittens on skateboards ain't fucking it for me, but no. They got in this conversation about a band called Tok Tok. And I guess the lead singer, it's a band you probably wouldn't know, but they're very important to music. And the reason why they're important is because they made an album that was so self-motivated to just go out there and make music that it was a commercial fucking failure. And to this day, it's why in music, when you sign your contract, there's a part in there, there's a clause that says, you have to make this sellable. And that was a big thing. They went out there and just did music.
Makes sense.
And his whole thing was, whenever you're playing, he would bring people in, and he apparently would have them do like if he brought in somebody that did a violin, or if he brought somebody in that did a cello, he'd have them play for like 3 hours just to find a 10-second clip and use that as part of the song somewhere. And it was this really weird sort of otherworldly jazz type, weird funk rock type thing.
Yeah.
And his whole thing was, at the end of the day, the note that you play before, the note that you play after, and the note that you're playing now, they all have meaning and they all matter.
Yeah.
And that whole idea that when you apply that, because that was what was interesting, was the other guy was like, it would be interesting to apply that to other mediums. You know what I mean? And you start thinking about it, in sales, every word that you're saying does have some sort of a meaning to it. It does have some sort of gravity on that conversation.
Yeah.
And whether, like I said before, the couple, what thing that they picked up on here and what that one picked up there, it all comes full circle, I think. And that's why, especially I think in today's day and age, with the way, talking about communication, everything is so short-lived and so everybody has small attention spans on stuff. So, trying to come back and have a meaningful conversation and sit down with somebody when we're so used to Twitter, putting things out and however many characters or less.
Used to be 140, I think it's like 280.
Facebook, where I can literally hit refresh on a page, look at the first thing and hit refresh, and that thought's gone and I'm looking at something different.
You'll never find it again unless you see that.
That's actually happened. There's been times where I'm like, who the fuck said that? What I want to see that, and I can't.
All the time.
You know what I mean? So I think like in today's day and age, communication, it's a Prensado lost art.
What? How'd that lead into it?
Lost art. It's a lost art. But he threw in the Prensado.
It's a lost art.
You could have just said lost art.
No,
you completely negated everything you just said.
I had to over-influence and do a shameless plug on my company's brand as I sit here and drink.
We like it.
No, but seriously, I do think that having this sort of discussion about communication, I think it's a very interesting topic, and I'm happy you picked it while I'm out here.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. It's, but it's just, it's.
We had a gap.
I'll always feel it.
I think getting back to besides the sales point. Besides the sales point, if you're just having a normal conversation with someone, I think that the lost art, man.
You're getting around it
now. No. I was going to say it. I was literally going to say it, lost art, as in the fact that it's a give and take.
It's fucking catchy.
It's a give and take.
Yeah.
The conversation literally is a give and take. Takes two parties at the basic level.
It's consensual.
At the basic level, and like you said, Ryan, with being, and not to just reiterate completely, but to add to your point about the eagerness of our society, the impatience, the whole, it's all about
that
now, timing, the fleeting moment. I think a lot of people think I think like that, especially with some aspects, and I have to take it back and say, even now, when I have Steve, it's definitely difficult when you have more than two people.
Absolutely.
And you see that a lot in cigar shops.
We see that on the internet every day.
Yeah, all the time. And then it most of the time leads into confrontation because there's too many parties involved, but that's not the wrong thing. The main part is that you're listening to each point, you're listening to everything that they're saying, and then you gather your thoughts and then say what you really need to say or what you really want to say. Half the time when we're talking in the cigar shop, I may forget it. It's a little bit different on the podcast where we're trying to make this the best it can be.
Sure.
I think I have a point, Steve thinks he has a point, and our guest thinks they have a point. And even if we think it's gold, we may have to step back for a second and understand that the other person's talking. It may even turn into what you're already going to say. That's what sometimes is interesting.
Yeah.
Where they even think of what you're actually going to say. But my point is there's a give and take there, and it's just about understanding for 1 second that it's not all about you. I mean, it's just simple. I really think it's simple, and I know that we get eager as people, especially as Americans, and impatient, but it's simple as that.
Well, I mean, and I think that's the biggest caveat, is we're all just people. And, you know, everybody's going to perceive and react to things differently. And sort of like the idea that I mentioned earlier that I had about there doesn't always have to be a victor in a conversation.
Sure.
Sometimes non-communication can be just as effective as communication. I mean, walking away from a conversation because you realize you're at a tipping point where you're on tilt and there's nothing that you're going to productively add to that conversation is just as important as saying the right thing, I think. So, you know, going back, you know, being in a group and things getting heated, like you said, with a confrontation, walking away from it and waiting until you're in a better position and a better mind state to get in and communicate, that's important too, you know.
It says a lot more.
And I think everybody just has to be as receptive as they can. They don't have to necessarily understand and appreciate and respect everything right now. But as long as that occurs at some point in the conversation, I think everybody will be in a better place.
I think, you know, I'll go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, there's actually... There's a Modest Mouse lyric that I'm a huge fan of, where it's language is the liquid that we're all dissolved in, great for solving problems after it creates a problem. And I think that's a very true statement.
What exactly does that mean?
So basically
How do you
saying
interpret that?
So basically saying, like, you know, language is awesome when you use it to communicate with people, but like perhaps we take it for granted, and then like whenever we throw something out there into the world for somebody to interpret, we're maybe careless with the way they interpret it. And then whenever you realize, wait a minute, that did not go over how I meant it to be, you then think about what you're saying and you go back to it. You have to use that to sort of finesse your way back into good graces by, you know, making things right.
It's not so impulsive
right
at that point.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great thing, talking about the fleeting moment and the way we are with the internet and stuff. Impulse and knee jerk, you know, I think that's a lot of communication these days. And, you know, how many people that you've heard when they get irritated at their boss, they type an email and then they delete it and then they type a new one, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Texting's even more prevalent anymore.
Absolutely. And that's the thing with texting is you can just fucking bam, done.
You see the three, go.
No, you see the three dots and then it goes away and you're like, what the fuck? And then it comes back on. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
No, what did you want to say?
Yeah, exactly.
I saw you typing. Like, no, I wasn't typing. That must have been a glitch. Like,
no, that didn't happen.
We have iPhones. I see you now, motherfucker.
All right, so now we're to the point of, I think, you know, we're coming up to that time. We're getting better. I think, again, we're getting more effective at this. You know, so you want
another 4 days, we'll have this all figured out.
You want to do closing remarks?
Yeah, but you're always last.
I can start. I can go last. Doesn't matter.
No, you go last.
All right.
Because we'll all say something and we'll all
You'll
go
have
around
a second
table
closing
again.
remarks.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on.
And defense rest.
No.
One of these episodes, I'm going to be like, well said. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. Jake's going to be like, what
exactly
the fuck?
what I was going to say.
Yes. See, that's what I normally do. No, it's interesting. I think this has been a really good conversation and in communication, really. Like, it's always fun to have, especially a cigar rep on here, and especially someone like you, Ryan, where even though you said like you didn't want to be on here initially, you're on here now, and we hope that you had a great time and are having a great time. But it's definitely interesting to see all the different aspects of the different routes that we can really go down when you're talking about like the art of communication. And really what it comes down to is it's that balance of between trying to understand like what you're trying to get across and trying to understand how it's going to be interpreted. And when you're doing that, it can almost boggle your mind up when you don't even know what the hell you're saying at the end of the conversation. But when you're trying to be honest, when you're trying to be a genuine person and you're creating a conversation among yourselves, that's all it is a conversation. There's no, like you said, Ryan, there's no victor. There doesn't have to be a victor in the conversation. As long as there's a mutual respect among each other,
Right.
You're all like, not to sound too cliche, or too like sentimental, but we're all winners, really, if you're thinking about it. But as long as you feel better about the conversation, they listened, at least they acknowledge, you listen to what they said, you're golden. And especially if you're in sales, if you do that and both sides are happy, you're definitely a winner. You're all winners. So it's interesting where the being elaborate in today's society and understanding that can sometimes conflict with what's actually happening in reality. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
Yeah, it makes
total sense.
It's pretty crazy how far we can dive down the rabbit hole in something that I think we all take for granted and that we look at face value. So,
Ryan, closing remarks.
I understand what you're saying. I appreciate what you've told me.
You motherfucker.
And I acknowledge the vulnerability that you used in expressing your thoughts and ideas to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's it, Matt.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful thing.
That's your closing remarks? I know it's not. You took a big breath right there. Before you give your actual closing remarks, I do want to welcome Ray Cheshire, who's been with us since the beginning.
Hi, Ray.
Hey, Ray.
Vietnam.
He's been with the podcast since Vietnam?
Well, maybe. We've been looking for it. No, Ray lives in Vietnam. He says, closing remarks, but I just got here. He said there's, daylight savings time. We start earlier. Now that he's in that time zone, like with that, like he's looking at it, he's like, I just woke up. He's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So,
but before
retirement must be hard. You can't wake up early on what day is it there? Thursday?
Are they a day ahead?
Yeah, I think they're Thursday morning right now.
Just one more. Did you see my post earlier before we came?
I liked it.
Did you read it at all?
Yeah,
did you fully read it?
Yeah.
I just want to add this. It's kind of because we were talking about
We'll get back to you, Ryan.
Literally. All right,
it's cool.
We're
talking. Sits back in his chair.
Hand me the baton and take it back.
He's done. He's done. No. I just wanted to say, because I was pretty proud about it, because I was being pretty honest, and we were talking about kind of how things are okay if lifestyles are different. I remember somebody made a point about that tonight.
So at Win the Day, or at Jake Win the Day.
On Instagram and on Twitter and anything else. But I was talking about like how this year has kind of been different. I've discovered like a lot about myself and like different parts of myself every day. And I think this podcast has helped, and that's why we hope that it helps you, our listeners and viewers. But I was explaining, like...
Read it off. Just read it verbatim.
So
this is a great post. I like it.
I said, so I'm discovering a new part of myself every day, and that's because I've realized that it's okay for lifestyles to change. And the reason why I said that is because I went from being like a weightlifter, was waking up at 4 a.m., being with the 4 a.m. crew at Old School, and I was, loving that, and I kind of had like a hustle and drive towards that, being a videographer and stuff. But it changed, and then... Hang on.
Sorry, I am going to interrupt on this one.
Yeah.
Read the whole thing, and then give your thing.
So I said, as long as your head is in the right place, I take more time in my day to reflect. I'll sit down with a cigar and a glass of something special, and envision what I want my world to be. I don't get to the gym very often anymore, but I do when it's convenient for me. Now, I can already hear some of you commenting on how that's not the way to go about things, but here's what I'll say to that. There's not one specific way to live your life. This is my right now and what I think I should be doing for myself. That doesn't mean it's the best or the right way. It's just what I need right now until I grow more and move on to the next stage. Until then, I'll be here sipping on something special with my cigar and with great people surrounding me. And what I meant by that was the fact that I went from being like strict weightlifting, that's all like I wanted to do, heavy in weights, getting pretty strong. But I realized that I was losing myself and engulfing myself into that arena with the people that are in that arena. And I didn't really like seeing the people that was in that arena around me. So, and then discovering whiskey and discovering cigars and the conversations that arise out of what we're doing right now, it made me change my thinking on, well, I really, really enjoy this. I really enjoy like reflecting and added a value that I think is unmatched when it comes to what I was doing. I was able to take time because it takes time to do this stuff. It takes time to appreciate whiskey. It takes time to appreciate a good cigar. And I think that is a value that is unmatched. And for me, and really what I'm speaking on is the fact that it's about me. It's not about the group. And it's about you, our listeners and viewers. Like, if you are in a setting and you're not happy about it, then if there's something on the side that you really, really enjoy, I mean, there's something to be said about someone that changes that aspect of their life, and I know it's super, super hard because you lose yourself in that midst of trying to merge over to something else that you're passionate about, especially when people don't think it's the right way.
So someone out there is listening said, very nice, Jacob. Embracing change and being comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. That's the real key.
That was Ray Cheshire.
Being comfortable.
It's like building a sand
Fresh
castle.
in the morning, that was Ray in Vietnam.
Thank you, Ray.
Fucking Ray is ready to take this.
He's ready to go.
On.
He's always ready.
It's so funny. He actually said bullshit, dude. Been up for a while, but have to get the wife off to work so that she doesn't have to listen to your potty mouths. I like that too. But no, that is actually a very, very nice post and nice words.
I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, a lot of things that we do in life is like building a sandcastle at the beach. And you built yourself a wonderful set of walls with your physical features and all that at the gym. You've sculpted it out beautifully. But guess what?
I love metaphors.
The water's eroded your towers. And sometimes you just get back and build those towers back up, baby. And that's what you're doing.
Sometimes they don't look always the same.
They don't always look the same, but you know what? They're still better. They're still better.
It's so beautiful, but I just don't know if it's just
for real.
No, there's a little bit of
like
sarcasm.
Like the best part is, like, I just wanted a straight Al Pacino son of a woman, like, Johnny, Greg, fuck you too. Like, I wanted to do one of those. Like, seriously, like, who fucking don't talk bad on a dude's shit, because I think what you're doing is great. I think it's awesome. And I appreciate everybody's opinion. Thank you for your viewership on Blow and Smoke Pocket. But seriously, no, it's you know, I think what you're doing is great, and that's one of those things where when you get to a certain point, you got to find that balance, and you gotta know when you know, obviously you still do something to stay in shape. You know what I mean? You're just not trying to push it any further. Maybe you're happy where you're at.
Yeah.
And you got to go somewhere else in your life, and you got to build that up and make that where you want it to be.
What about? Do you want to go back to the communication thing? You have the closing
remarks on communication.
Do you still have that? It's okay if you don't, but
I think the big thing with communication is timing. No. I actually thought about when we were talking about that earlier, like waiting way later and be like, you know, sometimes it's like you don't get that opportunity to say the right thing in time. You guys would be like, what the fuck are you talking? I think the big thing with communication is...
I love it.
It reminds me of a fictional character I once knew.
Reminds me of my friend John right here. No. You see John, right?
They can see you. Audio can.
They're right there.
Yeah, it's fine.
You can look at them.
I'm here with you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
That's terrifying.
Has that been rolling the whole time?
What?
Why is that thing on a tripod right
Why is that on a tripod?
Not talking about
How do you talk on the phone like that?
Right.
No. But closing remarks with communication. I think at the end of the day, communication, like we've talked about, is give and take. I think the big thing is being vulnerable in a conversation. I think you have to understand what somebody else is trying to say. Like I said, there's not always a victor involved. I think that when you go in knowing what your point is, that's very important to a conversation. I think you should know where you stand on things. I think you should try to figure out a way to convey that the best way you possibly can. But on the other hand, you have to be willing to listen to what somebody else is going to say. And maybe you're going to get to that point where you realize maybe both you guys are right. You know, or at the very least, you at least respect that person for what they're trying to bring to the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think sitting here and saying something philosophical or something nice like that sounds like maybe I'm good at communicating or something like that. We all make mistakes in communication. Like I said, I think it's important to acknowledge when you're potentially going to make a mistake, to when you have made a mistake, and going back and trying to fix that mistake and extending that olive branch and trying to get out there and like I said, better understand where things went wrong. going back to my Modest Mouse quote, I mean, that's what it's all about. You know, when things go wrong in communication, you have to go back to basics and you have to figure out why it went wrong and how you're going to fix it. And that's very much going to be the same way. No. It's just a matter of being receptive and being open to it and being able to be. You have to allow yourself to be influenced to a certain extent.
Yeah.
That's all I fucking got.
I like it.
Tune in next time. No.
Yeah.
No, this is one of many with Ryan Ponist here.
Oh my God.
All right. So
we'll be live in 2 more hours.
Yeah. No, we haven't recorded any of this.
After drink, we'll be live in 2 more hours.
We start recording in about 5 minutes.
Cool.
Is you ready? Good trial run there.
Trial run. I'm ready.
There's a lot of things people will say about talking. If you don't say it, they'll never hear it, right? If you don't express yourself, the other party will not hear it, which is very important. So when you hold things back, that's a lot of times is a breakdown in communication. People talk about breakdown in communication. We haven't really talked about that a whole lot tonight, but I will say, going back to it, I remember something that Jake said a while back where, you know, when he started in the industry, in the cigar industry rather, if it kind of like cold calls, the same thing, same effort. If you don't know if I should introduce myself or whatever, but I'm not saying interject yourself in every conversation around you because that is awkward and that's not your place, right? That's not what you do. That's not like you go up to that party at a, you know, like a get together and you just like kind of walk into a joke and you just start laughing and you're that person everyone like looks at like, where the fuck did you come from? Who are you? I'm not saying do that, but if there's an opportunity to introduce yourself and you want to do that to anyone, just do it, because you will miss that opportunity if you don't do it. You know, I think the breakdown of communication.
It's like talking to girls.
Absolutely, it's like talking to girls. It's like sales. It's all a numbers game. If you don't actually make that cold call,
it's just like talking.
It's just like talking.
Communication. Deep thoughts.
Deep thoughts by Ryan Ponist, the Road Warrior.
Can we get a Steve?
Come to my event on July 20th. No.
Why is this still up?
It's the only AB that you'll give us.
Oh my God.
Can we get a Steve Kramer real quick? Get comfortable.
Now get some my closing remarks.
Hey, I'm Steve. That wasn't a good one. I can't get low.
I got in there.
I can't get low. There's something about that position where.
So that leads me to my next point: is that if you force it, it won't be natural.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about communication,
like
you like that? You like that?
An erection.
Segue? So if
There's a metaphor for you.
I've been slowly dismantling this fucking podcast one goddamn segment at a time, and we might be off the chain.
Our viewers went up. Wait, no, they're going down. I'll leave it at the metaphor of the fact that when you're talking about communication, when you're doing this, when you're having a discussion with someone, if you look at it like the whole thing where it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
That's
Ice Cube said that.
That's a I think that's a guaranteed metaphor. That's when you latch onto things. If someone else makes your point, you didn't lose out. There's another
bottle on the table.
There's no one losing in a conversation unless you absolutely just push your will, push your thoughts on the other parties in that conversation. Whether it be just hanging out, having a conversation about casual things, because that will break down. If you're having a sales conversation, it'll break down if all you do is force feed that person. If you are having a heart-to-heart with someone, that's really where I think communication really finds its truest identity, when you're actually having a conversation. It's been mentioned before tonight, where if you're actually present in that conversation, you won't miss anything.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to have effective communication, you may have to work on it, just like anything else. If you find yourself, people don't want to talk to you anymore. If you feel like you're dominating conversations, realize the whole purpose of having effective communication is the fact that you said everyone's a winner, Jake. It's that whole aspect of it is that you want to get everything you can out of every moment. And if you're in a conversation, if you're having communication with another person, whether it be through words or be through actions, if you don't express yourself and let the other party express themselves, even if they don't want to. If they don't want to express themselves, that's fine. They may not be ready for that, but you can't. But how many times have we talked about that? Like, and not even on this podcast, but how many times do you talk about it in general? That if the other person doesn't want to, like you know, What's wrong? Nothing. That type of thing. If you're trying to communicate with that person and they shut down, you have to pull up. You have to pull back. You can't force things out of someone. So it doesn't matter what the situation is, but if you're actually having a conversation or if you're trying to have effective communication, that's that whole marathon thing. If someone's not ready to talk, they may not be ready to talk, and eventually they might. And it may not be to you, but the same thing we were talking about earlier, where if you're having a group of discussion and someone else makes your point, the point's made. No one's keeping tally. No one's doing that. Like, the next time around where you're listening,
I've already forgot that conversation.
Yeah, someone else won't have that. And that's when you're an active listener, you're an active participant in the communication, and that's, I think, where we actually, like to Jake's point again, I liked it a lot, where everyone's a winner of it because there's a lot of honesty there and a lot of honest effort there where you are active in that communication. And the activity level is really what brings the value way up and the genuine side of it way up. And hopefully both sides or all sides of that communication have actively been involved. And that's always where it's like if you're listening to someone else and you realize that they're not in it, then you actually have to scale it back a little bit and you realize that you're not going to get your point across.
Steve, I have to be honest with you, I haven't been in it this whole time.
I know.
What?
He's been glazed over the entire time.
Yeah, I just realized, holy shit, I'm on a podcast. No. I think that's, it's interesting. I'm surprised we didn't touch on it at all. And fucking, I don't know if we can go into overtime or if we want to. But
as Jake said, I say my closing remarks and then
it's kind of interesting.
Even when he's last.
We didn't touch on, like body language or anything like that in communication because, like, there's so many times. I literally had a conversation with another rep today where we were talking about myself and a retailer that, aren't on the best terms. And we made a conversation where I said, it's just something that's better said in person. I want to get an honest read on them. I think it's very important that they get an honest read on me. And, there's a lot of things that get lost when you're just dealing with texts and emails and tweets and Facebook messages and Facebook posts. And
even a phone call is better.
Phone calls are better. The
inflection, the mannerisms, just even in voice.
Absolutely. That's because you're getting an emotional response out of someone.
Right.
It's not just...
And they say that's like 80% of communication, I think, is just, body language and inflection and things like that. It's non-communicative communication.
That's really smart. This has been amazing.
You're amazing.
That
hat's amazing.
Thank
you.
I do think
Steve is just like, what is going on right now?
No, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm curious to talk after the podcast about how we measured up to your first two.
Exactly.
I
think we overexceeded
it.
Why?
I don't know. It's just natural. I think for
just
people to
like,
it's like,
because we're the best.
Just do you, boo.
It's like, but how do I compare to the first two that you were with?
Be fabu. Oh, wow. There might be a listener out there that's wondering that same thing right now.
This has been amazing. We do want to shout out Tri-State Bourbon Aficionados and Tony Gresham for giving us and donating a couple glasses.
Yeah.
I'm drinking out of Dustin's Glencairn that he got from Tri-State Bourbon.
Hey, shout out Dustin.
Yes.
Back there, making noise on that chair.
Yes. Thank you, Dustin, for letting us use this, but more importantly, thank you, Tony, for getting these made. We got 2 glasses coming our way.
Yeah, I heard. That's amazing.
We're going to be taking more product pictures with that, just so people, if they want to join the group, and we'll join, we'll send out like requests to them. But it's a good group, man.
I share it every week to that group now.
Yeah, they're a good group of people, and it's definitely fun. But yeah, thank you, Tony Gresham and Tri-State Bourbon Aficionados. Thank you, Alec Bradley. Thank you, Ryan Ponist.
All right, I'll do shameless plugs real quick.
Go.
If you want more of my shenanigans, at Ride the Cigar Guy, RY the Cigar Guy on Instagram and Twitter.
Your headshot
Twitter
as your profile picture. Where is that? It's just on your.
That was actually
that.
Done at the trade show.
It's amazing
by our Canadian partnership. If you're interested in their work, it's at Bevs and Burns. They do some really cool stuff. And then my other handle is at Rye Witness, RYWITNESS. That's more my personal photography shit.
Got a hell of a camera.
I don't post. I don't. I'm not very good at it, but it looks nice. That's all that matters. So, if you want to follow more like my photography type stuff, it's a little bit more not so much day to day, but just cool shit that I'm out there trying
like
to take pictures
podcast.
of. Yeah, like the podcast, except not regular at all. Like I'm still posting Alaska from a year ago, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
It's a great part about pictures.
Yeah, as I get into this shit, I do it because fucking selling cigars takes a lot of time off my hands. So, but yeah, that's it. At Alec Bradley Cigar, thank you very much for the drink and the smoke.
Yes, absolutely.
Much like William Grant and the guys at Hudson. So,
yes, and
fucking awesome.
And the Prensado again is available. The Toro is available at Tinder Box.
Absolutely, the Lost Art.
And we always talk about. We haven't said it in the last few episodes, but again, you can come in within the next week and you get 15% off the Toro, and it's an amazing cigar. And I think it's what, $11.95.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I mean, come in, you get 15% off that, and you really should.
You have to mention Bourbon and BS podcast.
Mention that podcast.
Yes.
If you don't.
Yes.
I'm never coming back.
Thank you.
Well,
what was the point? No.
Hopefully, we'll have Alec Bradley as a stable sponsor going forward.
That'd
I'm going
be
to put you
amazing.
on blast right now.
Actually,
we'll figure it
maybe
out.
We'll work on something in the future.
Sure.
Maybe we'll work on it.
We'll see what happens.
This conversation's really dove into, and I think it's appropriate that it's leading into what next week's is.
Yeah.
Which is what.
Cool. I'm glad I was just
being
present.
actively being present or being present. I
Yeah.
think we'll just leave it at being present.
Yeah.
And we'll have that as the phrase.
But it's really great.
Ironic that you're talking about next time.
We've already been present tonight.
Be present next time.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Thanks for
Whiskey Wednesday.
Yes, thank you Tinder Box at Easton. Thank
not as
you
good as what
Altadis
you
Cigar USA. Thank you BS Cigar Company. I'm smoking the BS Rubito right now. The
BS Silver Rubito.
I'm not gonna say anything about it because we're gonna have it on again.
Yeah, we will.
And we'll decipher that at a later
Absolutely.
date. But cheers everyone.
Cheers.
Bourbon and BS podcast.
Fucking A.